Chapter 3309. Courting death, the leaders of the surrounding subordinate races all kept quiet out of fear as they stared at the three wraiths that had retreated behind Zhuo Wen in fear. They were more and more convinced that Zhuo Wen might have really defeated the Phoenix Master. They could not afford to offend such a powerful person. Now, they were no longer thinking about joining forces to destroy Zhuo Wen. Instead, they were thinking about how to break away from their relationship with the Phoenix people and avoid angering this ruthless person in front of them. Liang Shu's face was ashen. He had already thought that Zhuo Wen was a ruthless person who could even kill a powerful person like the Phoenix Master. He was finished for offending such a ruthless person. The Fire Elephant tribe behind him was also finished. Everyone here, do you want me, Zhuo Wen, to die like the Fire Elephant tribe's leader? If there is, feel free to step forward. Zhuo Wen looked around and shouted loudly. The surrounding foreign tribes kept quiet out of fear and involuntarily stepped back. The leaders of the subsidiary tribes hurriedly waved their hands, declaring that they did not think that way. They had only come to watch the show. They did not have any ulterior motives. Lord Zhuo, you are extraordinarily brave. The Phoenix people oppressed you every day. It is normal for you to resist them. That's right. We have no relationship with the Phoenix people. We are just closer to them. When we heard the commotion, we gathered here to join in the fun. Lord Zhuo, don't misunderstand. Liang Shu was so angry that his face turned pale. He wanted to scold these fence-sitters. Unfortunately, his throat was tightly gripped by the evil spirit, and he could not make a sound. I am relieved to hear everyone's words. Zhuo Wen smiled faintly, with a thought. The evil spirit that was gripping Liang Shu's throat suddenly roared and tore Liang Shu apart. Seeing the bloody scene, the surrounding foreign tribes trembled. They were glad that they did not oppose Zhuo Wen and stood on the right side. Everyone, this matter is over. I will not stay any longer. See you later. Zhuo Wen greeted the surrounding leaders of the subsidiary clans with a fake smile. Then he summoned his flying divine artifact and leaped onto it with Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign and the snake-faced man. They disappeared on the spot. Only when Zhuo Wen's flying artifact was far away did the surrounding foreign races heave a sigh of relief. Then they all entered the main city of the Phoenix people to investigate. Soon they discovered the corpses of Heixian and the other fire gods, as well as the corpses of Suoingda and the others who had just defected. Other than that, they also found many Phoenix people huddled in an empty space in the northeast corner of the ruins. These Phoenix clansmen were the ones who surrendered to Zhuo Wen and were kept alive. Other than that, they did not discover the corpse of the Phoenix Master Feng Lilua in a luxurious inn near the Xiantian auction house. Feng Bumming had just settled Feng Minya down when he received news from Feng Lilua. When he received the news, his expression changed greatly, and he immediately left the inn. Soon, he arrived at a canyon hundreds of thousands of kilometers north of the Xiantian auction house. As soon as he entered the canyon, he immediately saw a staggering figure with his back against the rock wall. This figure was covered in blood, and both of her arms were twisted and incomplete, especially her left shoulder and left chest, which had become hollow. It was probably the result of a powerful energy bombardment. Feng Bumming walked closer and barely recognized that this battered figure was the Phoenix Master of the Phoenix people, Feng Lilua. Phoenix Master? Feng Bumming called out uncertainly. Feng Lilua forced her eyes open and said in a deep voice, Bumming, take me to a secluded place. I need to heal. Feng Bumming resisted the urge to ask and nodded. Then he helped Feng Lilua onto the flying divine artifact and flew toward the inn. Zhuo Wen and Crepe Myrtle Star's sovereign did not go far. They set up a cave abode in a valley millions of kilometers away from the main city of the Phoenix people. The two of them entered the cave abode and planned to go into seclusion to heal. Half a month later, Zhuowen walked out of the cave abode. His face was still pale and bloodless, but his hands were not as weak as they were half a month ago. In the past half a month, Zhuowen crazily swallowed healing elixirs and finally recovered 70% of his injuries. Although his injuries were not completely healed, and he might not be able to use his full strength, he was running out of time. There was only half a month left before the Sorcerer's Song Conference officially began. He had to go to the Sorcerer Tribe and participate in the Sorcerer's Song Conference. At this moment, Crepe Myrtle Star's sovereign also walked out of the cave abode. His complexion was much better than Zhuowen's. After all, his injuries were much lighter than Zhuowen's. In addition, with the heaven-defying Phoenix bloodline, he had almost recovered in half a month. Brother Crepe Myrtle, you should also come with me to participate in the Sorcerer Tribe's Sorcerer Song Conference. The power of the Sorcerer Ancestor is also very beneficial to your cultivation. Zhuowen said to Crepe Myrtle Star, sovereign. Ha, Brother Zhua, after hearing about the power of the Sorcerer Ancestor, I am indeed tempted. This time, I will participate in the Sorcerer Song Conference with you. When the time comes, we will win 2 places to enter the Sorcerer's magical pond. Crepe Myrtle Star sovereign laughed heartily. With our strength, it will not be a problem for us to win 2 places. Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Let's go now. The Sorcerer Tribe is quite a distance from here. Even if we travel at full speed, it will take about a week. Crepe Myrtle Star sovereign said. However, before we go to the Sorcerer's Song Conference, I think we still have time to go to the mysterious sky auction house. I still haven't received the reward for the items I sold there. It's time to ask for the reward. After saying that, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and released the snake-faced man from the macro world. At first, the snake-faced man was a little confused. When he saw Zhuowen, he quickly bowed, respectfully. No need for formalities. You did well this time. The resources in this spiritual ring are for you. You should take care of yourself in the future. After Zhuowen threw a spiritual ring to the snake-faced man, he took out the space-time roulette. After the two of them stepped into the space-time roulette, they turned into a streamer and disappeared in midair. The snake-faced man stared blankly at Zhuowen, who had left. He knew that Zhuowen did not intend to keep him by his side, which made him feel a little disappointed. However, after he opened the spiritual ring, he was attracted by the vast amount of resources in it. He could not help but kneel in the direction where Zhuowen had left and say, "Thank you, Lord Zhuowen." At the same time that Zhuowen left the valley, countless tribes in the untainted heavenly realm also set off for the Sorcerer Tribe, which was located in the center of the untainted heavenly realm. There were even some tribes that had already arrived at the Sorcerer Tribe's boundary, waiting for the Sorcerer Song Conference to begin. At this moment, in the boundary of the Xiantian auction house, Feng Lilua walked out with Feng Bumming and 3 fire deities in a luxurious inn. Feng Manya silently followed behind Feng Lilua and Feng Bumming. Her face was buried deep in her chest, so no one could see her expression. The 3 of you take Feng Manya back to the Phoenix people's main city. Gather the rest of the Phoenix people and rebuild the main city. Feng Lilua's face was still a little pale as she ordered the 3 fire deities beside her. The 3 fire deities had arrived at the Xiantian auction house in advance to auction the Taishan spiritual creation elixir, which allowed them to avoid disaster. The 3 fire deities naturally did not dare to disobey Feng Lilua. They took the distraught Feng Manya and left the boundary of the Xiantian auction house. Lord Phoenix Master, did Zhuowen really destroy the main city of the Phoenix people? Feng Bumming still could not believe what Feng Lilua had told him before. He felt that it was too unbelievable. How could Zhuowen have the ability to destroy the main city of the Phoenix people? Humph, this is not something you should be thinking about. You better prepare for the Sorcerer's Song Conference. This time, you must get a spot. Now, follow me to the Sorcerer Tribe. Chapter 33:10. A big shop bullying a customer after Feng. Liulua left the Xiantian auction house with Feng bumming. Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star arrived at the Xiantian auction house on a flying divine tool. When they landed in front of the Xiantian auction house, they realized that it was much quieter than before. He knew that the reason why it was so lively before was mainly because of the auction. Now that the auction was over, it was only natural for people to leave and disperse. So this is the Xiantian auction house. It looks quite grand. No wonder it dares to be called the #1 auction house in the primitive heaven domain. Crepe Myrtle Star looked at the magnificent auction house in front of him and clicked his tongue in wonder. Zhuowen looked at the magnificent auction house in front of him with a trace of mockery in his eyes. Zhuowen took out his communication jade talisman and sent a message to the president of the auction house, Xian Hang. Then he stood at the entrance of the auction house and waited. Not long after, Xian Hang walked out of the auction house with Gao Xin with a smile. Xiaoyu, you're so late. It's been half a month. I thought you were coming. Xian Hang said enthusiastically. Hee, I was delayed by some troublesome matters. That's why I'm half a month late. Zhuowen said with a faint smile. Zhuowen sized up Xian Hang. He realized that there was a trace of disdain and condescension in Xian Hang's eyes. Zhuowen was puzzled. Could it be that Xian Hang didn't know that he had caused trouble for the Phoenix people half a month ago? He could clearly see that Xian Hang looked down on him. This made Zhuowen very puzzled. Logically speaking, if Xian Hang knew what had happened to the Phoenix people, he wouldn't show such an expression. He would definitely treat him with caution. By the way, is this person beside you your friend? Xian Hang pointed at Crepe Myrtle Star and asked doubtfully. Although Crepe Myrtle Star's aura had been completely restrained, there was still a strong sense of oppression when he stood there. Xian Hang could feel that Crepe Myrtle Star was not someone to be trifled with, so he restrained his attitude. Yes, he is my friend. His name is Crepe Myrtle. Zhuowen said calmly. Xian Hang nodded and didn't care too much. Instead, he smiled and said, Xiaoyu, follow me into the private room first. Zhuowen didn't refuse and followed Xian Hang and Gao Xin into the Xiantian auction house. The room that Xian Hang arranged this time was much larger than last time. The decorations inside were also extremely high-end and luxurious. However, the moment Zhuowen entered the room, he sneered inwardly. This was because he could sense at least 7 types of formations in this room, and they were basically all creation-level formations. Moreover, these creation grade grand formations were formed from a heaven-piercing grade grand formation as the core. This grand array was more than enough to trap a middle-stage heavenspan Lord Powerhouse. It seemed that this Xian Hang had long been scheming. Also, Zhuowen concluded that the news about the Phoenix people had not spread yet, or rather, the Phoenix people had strictly controlled the news. Otherwise, it was impossible for the Xiantian auction house to not know about such a big thing that had happened to the Phoenix people. If Xian Hang knew about what had happened to the Phoenix people, he wouldn't have thought of dealing with Zhuowen. This was because if the Phoenix people's matter was exposed, the news that Zhuowen was a heaven-piercing array master would also be exposed. If Xian Hang knew about this, he wouldn't use the grand formation to deal with Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen could sense the grand formation in the room, he remained calm and collected. Crepe Myrtle Star, who was following beside him, didn't notice it at all. After all, he didn't understand array Dao. It was naturally not that easy to detect an unactivated grand formation in advance. Xian Hang warmly led Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star to a private room and instructed Gao Tsin to investigate for the two of them. He then sat opposite Zhuowen. President Xian, you should have guessed why I'm here, right? The two Taishan spiritual creation pills and the Phoenix People's Saintess that I put up for auction at your auction house last time should have been sold for quite a high price. Zhuowen said calmly. However, Xian Hang looked regretful and said, Shui Xiaoyu, speaking of the auction, I feel a little sorry for you. What do you mean? Zhuowen asked. It's like this. Many people bid for the two Taishan spiritual creation pills, but because the witch tribe's high priestess personally came out once she opened her mouth, no one dared to raise the price. In the end, it was only sold for 2 million heavenly law origin crystals. As for the Phoenix People's Saintess, she was directly taken by the Phoenix leader, Feng Lilu. We couldn't stop her. She didn't even give me a single heavenly law origin crystal. You also know how powerful the Phoenix people are. Our small auction house can't afford to offend them. I've calculated it for you. 2 million heavenly law origin crystals. After deducting the fixed handling fee of 3 million heavenly law origin crystals, you still owe our Xiantian auction house 1 million heavenly law origin crystals. However, Zhui Xiaoyu is also our old customer. I'll give you a discount for this 1 million heavenly law origin crystals. You only need to give our Xiantian auction house 800,000 heavenly law origin crystals. Xian Hang was all smiles as he spread out his hands towards Zhuowen. Crepe Myrtle Star's gaze turned cold, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen's expression wasn't too good either. He knew that Xian Hang would definitely tamper with it, but he would still give him a little. However, he didn't expect that Xian Hang wouldn't even give him a single heavenly law origin crystal and wanted him to pay for it. In his opinion, this kind of behavior was simply too vile. President Xian, did you calculate wrongly? I actually still owe your Xiantian auction house 800,000 heavenly law origin crystals. Zhuowen looked coldly at Xian Hang. Xian Hang smiled faintly. Xian Hang, have never miscalculated. I can show you the details of the accounts. With that, Xian Hang took out a scroll and unfurled it, placing it in front of Zhuowen. Zhuowen didn't even look at it and said coldly, I can give you the 800,000 heavenly law origin crystals. I won't pursue the matter of the Phoenix People's Saintess. However, you must return the 2 great mystic creation spirit pills to me. Otherwise, I'll make public the fact that your profound sky auction house is bullying your customers. The smile on Xian Hang's face vanished. He looked at Zhuowen with a cold smile and said, Shui Xiaoyu, I entertained you with good intentions, but now you want to slander our Xiantian auction house. You really have the heart of a wolf and the lungs of a dog. Zhuowen couldn't be bothered with Xian Hang and said indifferently, Today, if your Xiantian auction house doesn't hand over the 2 great mystic creation spirit pills, Zhuowen, will tear down your auction house. Zhuowen, will do what I say and won't play dumb. Someone who dares to say that he'll tear down our Xiantian auction house. Shui Xiaoyu, you're the first. Although our Xiantian auction house is a small business, it's not that easy to bully. Today, if you dare to bully our auction house, then you can forget about leaving here today. Xian Hang laughed coldly. A terrifying aura suddenly erupted, sweeping toward Zhuowen like a storm. But very soon, an even more powerful aura tore apart the aura that Xian Hang was brewing like a sharp claw and acted on Xian Hang's body. Uffed, Xian Hang spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was unbelievably pale as he was sent flying. He looked at Crepe Myrtle Star, who was sitting beside Zhuowen, in disbelief and said in a deep voice, You're a late-stage master of heaven? Although Xian Hang's cultivation wasn't bad. He was only at the mid-stage master of heaven. The gap between him and Crepe Myrtle Star was not small. Chapter 33:11. Reap what you sow, retreat. Xianheng made a prompt decision. He immediately grabbed Gao Tsin and retreated towards the door. At the same time, he took out an array flag and threw it out. In an instant, the entire room was filled with violent ripples of array Dao. The pressure on Zhuowen and Myrtle Star Monarch multiplied countless times in an instant, as if it was going to completely crush them. Zhuowen's gaze was calm. With a wave of his sleeve, dozens of beast bone array discs flew out, constantly flying in the air, forming complicated and strange trajectories. Zhuowen, on the other hand, formed a seal with both hands. The pressure of the array that had formed around them seemed to have eased up a lot at this moment. At this moment, Xianheng and Gao Tsin had already retreated to the door of the room. They only needed to take a step to leave the room. However, Xianheng soon realized that something was wrong. This was because the moment he reached the door, he felt the obstruction of the array's energy, preventing him from continuing to retreat. Xianheng found it unbelievable. After he used the array flag to activate the array, the door's exit was set to not react to him and Gao Xian. But now, this kind of situation made Xianheng somewhat puzzled. Boom! In an instant, the array ripples erupted like a flood and blasted towards Xianheng. Xianheng was caught off guard, and his waist was hit. With a muffled groan, he retreated into the array. As soon as Xianheng backed off, a terrifying gust of wind swept toward him. Xuanheng's expression changed drastically. He didn't need to think to know that the owner of the gust of wind was Myrtle Star Monarch, who was beside Zhuowen. Xianheng was helpless. He couldn't dodge and could only meet force with force. He punched out, unleashing all the strength in his body. Crack! However, the moment his fist collided with Myrtle Star Monarch's, the bones in his right hand cracked. He spat out a mouthful of blood and heavily smashed into the edge of the array. At the same time, a terrifying killing intent swept out from the edge of the array. Waves of array vortexes blasted towards Xianheng like huge pythons. The array is actually attacking me? What's going on? Xianheng shouted loudly. He didn't even think before grabbing Gao Tsin, who was by his side, and placing her in front of him to block the grand formation vortex that was flashing over. Gao Tsin screamed miserably as he was torn into a bloody mist by the array whirlpool, and Xianheng used this gap to immediately retreat, avoiding the strangulation of the grand array vortex. You're a god, array master? You secretly tampered with my grand array? Xianheng looked at the nearby Zhuowen with a calm gaze and could not help but exclaim. He knew very well that his grand array had been tampered with. Moreover, to be able to tamper with the grand array in this room, one had to be at least at the level of transcending heaven array Dao. Thinking of this, Xianheng's eyes were filled with regret. If he knew that Zhuowen was such a powerful god array master, he wouldn't have lured him into this formation and trapped himself in a cocoon. Furthermore, he had not expected that Zhuowen would have such a powerful companion by his side. Now, such an unforeseen event had made things very complicated and difficult to handle. Wait! Seeing that Crepe Star was about to continue attacking, Xianheng hurriedly said, Xiaoyu, it's my fault this time. Let's sit down and have a good talk. I'll give you a satisfactory answer regarding the compensation for the 2 Taishian creation spirit pills. A mocking smile appeared on Zhuowen's face as he said indifferently, President Xian, this trick of yours is useless against me. I, Zhuowen, am a man of my word. Since I said that I would tear down your Xiantian auction house, I will naturally do as I say. Xianheng's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he threatened. Xiaoyu, it's all my fault this time. It has nothing to do with the Xiantian auction house. Moreover, you have to know that the Xiantian auction house is supported by many forces, including the sorcerer race and a few other of the top 10 races. If you tear down the Xiantian auction house, the forces behind the Xiantian auction house will not let you off. I think you'd better consider it carefully and not invite trouble to yourself. President Xian, Zhuowen, am a coward. No matter how many powerful forces are behind the Xiantian auction house, I've already said that I will tear down your Xiantian auction house. Brother Crepe Star, do it, Zhuowen said coldly. Crepe Star no longer hesitated. He stomped his right foot and no longer held back. A fierce attack poured down on Xianhang's body. Although Xianhang's strength was not bad, the gap between him and Crepe Star was too great. He barely managed to last more than 10 moves before he was completely destroyed by Crepe Star. After destroying Xianhang, Zhuowen walked out of the Xiantian auction house with Crepe Myrtle Star. He stood at the entrance of the Xiantian auction house and said loudly, "Unrelated personnel of the Xiantian auction house, it's best that you leave now. Next, I, Zhuowen, am going to tear down the auction house. If you don't come out, don't blame me if you get involved later." Zhuowen's voice was not loud, but it was full of energy. The Xiantian auction house and the surrounding foreign races heard it clearly. All of a sudden, all of the foreign races gathered around the auction house, looking at Zhuowen with strange gazes as they discussed among themselves. All the foreign races felt that Zhuowen was boasting. The Xiantian auction house was the strongest force in this realm, and there were many powerful forces behind it. To put it bluntly, even the leaders of the top 10 races did not dare to say that they would tear down the Xiantian auction house. The foreign races in the Xiantian auction house also rushed out. Among them, those unrelated to the Xiantian auction house looked at Zhuowen mockingly. "Who do you think you are? How dare you threaten to tear down my Xiantian auction house? Are you courting death?" A foreign race with the head of a goat and the body of a human holding a giant axe walked out from the depths of the auction house. It's the vice president of the Xiantian auction house, Yang Ji. He's an early-stage powerhouse who's second only to President Xianhang. Speaking of which, where's President Xianhang? Why is there only a vice president? Maybe he was delayed by other things. President Xianhang is not needed to deal with such an arrogant person. The surrounding foreign races discussed among themselves. They all felt that Zhuowen was done for. "Who are you?" Yang Ji looked coldly at Zhuowen and scolded. Zhuowen could not be bothered with Yang Ji and said, "Since you don't want to listen to my advice, I won't care about you anymore." With that, Zhuowen threw out an array flag and formed a seal with both hands. Instantly, the array flag turned into a stream of light and entered the Xiantian auction house. Then, a terrifying energy ripple surged out from the Xiantian auction house. Then, the luxurious and huge Xiantian auction house exploded in front of everyone's eyes. Terrifying shockwaves shot into the sky like a pillar that reached the heavens. Most of the foreign races who were still in the Xiantian auction house were engulfed by the shockwaves. They didn't even have time to scream before they were drowned by the shockwaves. Yang Ji, who was close to the Xiantian auction house, was caught off guard and was hit by the shockwaves. He flew out in a sorry state and crashed heavily onto the ground. Zhuowen looked at this scene silently. The reason he had thrown out the array flag was to detonate the Xiantian auction house's array chain. The power of the array chain's explosion was indeed terrifying. It completely engulfed the Xiantian auction house. On the other hand, the foreign races surrounding the auction house were dumbfounded as they looked at the Xiantian auction house that was engulfed by the shockwaves. They all thought that Zhuowen was just joking. But now, the Xiantian auction house was really torn apart. To be more precise, it was directly destroyed. At this moment, all the foreign races looked at Zhuowen with fear and respect. Chapter 33:12. Which god city you dare to destroy the mysterious sky auction house? You're courting death. After Yang Ji stabilized his sorry figure, he had already recovered from his shock. He glared at Zhuowen and could not help but shout angrily. However, Yang Ji didn't dare to step forward. He wasn't a fool. He knew why Xian Hang hadn't shown up yet. As the vice president of the mysterious sky auction house, of course, he knew that the guest Xian Hang had received was Zhuowen. He was the young man from the devouring clan who had auctioned the great mystery creation spirit pellet. Yang Ji knew that with Xian Hang's competence, he could have escaped from the explosion. However, Xian Hang hadn't shown up yet. Yang Ji knew that Zhuowen had killed Xian Hang. Because of this, Yang Ji didn't dare to step forward and fight with Zhuowen. He was just bluffing. You don't agree? Zhuowen turned to look at Yang Ji, his eyes cold. Yang Ji's heart tightened. He didn't say a word and immediately turned around to run away. The pagans gawked and dropped their jaws. They thought that Yang Ji would fight with this man. They didn't expect that he would run away. Standing next to Zhuowen, Purple Star Sovereign patted the void with his right hand. Immediately, a gigantic palm formed from black flames appeared above the fleeing Yang Ji and slammed down. Yang Ji couldn't dodge. The giant hand hit him directly. He screamed as the black flames covered him and turned him into ashes. Sizzle! 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 All the pagans took in breaths of cold air. They retreated and stayed far away from Purple Star Sovereign. Yang Ji was the vice president of the mysterious sky auction house. He was at the early sky-piercing realm. However, he was killed that easily. How strong was this man? Brother Purple Star, let's go. Zhuowen took out the space-time roulette. The two of them stepped on the roulette and left the place with a swoosh. After Zhuowen and Star Monarch North Myrtle had left, the foreign races around the profound heaven auction house erupted into a heated discussion. News of what had happened at the mysterious sky auction house spread quickly, and Zhuowen's name began to spread among the foreign races. Of course, he was going to become a thorn in the side of many big clans. After all, the mysterious sky auction house had more than one or two powerful forces behind it. Zhuowen's destruction of the mysterious sky auction house was the same as going against the forces behind it. When the mysterious sky auction house was destroyed, the forces behind it would quickly find out. When the time came, they would naturally take action accordingly. The shaman tribe was built in the center of the prehistoric heavenly realm and was also the economic center of the prehistoric heavenly realm. All the tribes in the primitive heaven realm liked to enter the sorcerer tribe's domain for trade. It was precisely because of this natural geographical advantage that the sorcerer tribe was the largest of all the alien tribes. Furthermore, in order to allow other races to come to the sorcerer tribe for better trade and communication, the sorcerer tribe had built an extremely vast city around the tribe. This huge city was many times larger than the main city of the Phoenix clan. It could accommodate hundreds of millions of living beings. The name of this huge city was Shaman God City. It was a famous city in the entire prehistoric heaven realm. During this period of time, Sorcerer God City was many times more lively than before. More and more non-humankind troops gathered from all directions and entered the Magus God City. Although the Sorcerer God City had a vast territory and a huge city, with so many foreign races moving in at once, the Sorcerer God City seemed a little crowded. Zhuowen and Purple Star Sovereign's destination this time was Sorcerer City. They received news that all pagans who wanted to participate in the Sorcerer Song Conference had to gather at Sorcerer City to register. Of course, Zhuo and the North Pole Star Monarch couldn't reveal their true appearances after causing havoc in the Phoenix clan and destroying the profound Sky Auction House. Moreover, they had suppressed their cultivation to a very low level. Zhuo Wen's cultivation level was not high to begin with. In addition, his Pangu's sacred body was not a normal cultivation method. Therefore, the aura of his cultivation level was always based on that of his original human body. Since his original human body digested the blue frost Ganoderma, his cultivation level had broken through and reached the late stage of the creator realm. His cultivation level was neither high nor low. Therefore, he did not need to suppress his cultivation level. Purple Star Sovereign's cultivation level was too high. It would be too ostentatious for him to participate in the Sorcerer Song Conference. However, Purple Star Sovereign's inheritance of the undying bird was indeed impressive. There was a secret method to suppress one's cultivation level and even completely hide one's aura. The secret method in the inheritance of the undying bird was not ordinary. It was said that it could completely hide one's aura. Even those at the peak of the ascending realm might not be able to see through it. With such a powerful secret technique, Zhuo naturally thickened his skin and asked for a copy from Crepe Myrtle Star. However, Zhuo did not let Purple Star Sovereign suffer a loss. He gave Purple Star Sovereign a bottle of ascending realm elixirs that could help him consolidate his cultivation level. After changing their appearances, the two of them completely changed their appearances. Zhuowen's appearance was that of a young man with an obvious scar on his right cheek. He could also suppress the aura of the Devouring clan, so people could not tell which clan he was from. Purple Star Sovereign's appearance was that of a black-clothed young man. His eyes were full of vicissitudes of life. His face was covered with fine metal scales. His aura was the same as Zhuowen's. It was hard to tell which clan he was from. This Sorcerer God City is really big. Whether it is in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain or the primitive Heavenly Domain, this Sorcerer God City can be considered an unprecedented giant city. Zhuowen stood in front of the city gate and could not help but sigh. It's also my first time seeing such a big city. The sorcerer race's magnificent masterpiece is really extraordinary. Purple Star Sovereign exclaimed. "Ha ha, two country bumpkins. It's your first time seeing Sorcerer God City, right?" When Zhuowen and Purple Star Sovereign were sighing with emotion, a disdainful snort came from behind them. Hearing that, the two of them could not help but turn around. They saw a flying divine weapon slowly landing behind them. On the deck of the flying divine weapon, a team of more than 10 people slowly walked down. The most conspicuous person in this team should be a kind-looking old man standing at the front of the team. The elder's aura was faintly discernible, but Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star Lord felt a threatening pressure from the elder. Standing on both sides of the old man was a young girl and a cold-looking young man. The alien race in this team looked almost the same as the human race. The only difference was that their eyes were blue, which reminded Zhuowen of the eyes of wolves. The alien race in this team should be related to wolves. The one who had mocked them just now should be the young girl standing beside the old man. The young girl was pretty, but she was far from being devastatingly beautiful. Although the young girl looked young, Zhuowen knew that she had lived for at least 1,000 years. The young girl noticed that Zhuowen and Purple Star Sovereign were looking at her. She raised her head and said contemptuously, "What are you looking at with your despicable eyes? Don't blame me for gouging your eyes out if you keep looking." Zhuowen and Purple Star Sovereign narrowed their eyes. This young girl had not only mocked them, but she was also speaking rudely now. They were experts at the level of the Master of Heaven Ascension. How could they tolerate such humiliation? Although they could see that this team was not ordinary, they were not afraid. Chapter 33:13. Moonwolf tribe, Qianping, don't be rude. The elder at the front of the group scolded the girl beside him. The young girl named Qianping pouted when she heard this. However, she obediently stopped talking nonsense to Zhuowen and the crepe myrtle star lord. I'm sorry. Qianping's personality is rather rude and unreasonable. If she has offended you, please forgive her. The old man said apologetically. One would not slap a smiling person. Since the old man had said so much, Zhuowen and Star Sovereign Ziwei naturally did not intend to take it to heart. It's okay. It's just a misunderstanding, Zhuowen said with a smile. My name is Yi Taiha. I'm the clan leader of the Moonwolf tribe. These are the juniors of the Moonwolf tribe. The old man smiled and pointed at the group of people behind him. He continued, both of you must be here to participate in the Sorcerer's Song Gathering, right? Which tribe are you from? You must have received the invitation of the Sorcerer tribe's high priest to go to the inner city of Sorcerer God City, right? Zhuowen and the crepe myrtle star monarch revealed grave expressions when they heard the old man's introduction that they were from the Moonwolf clan. The Moonwolf tribe was also one of the top 10 tribes in the primitive heavenly realm. They were ranked above the Phoenix people. No wonder when the two of them first saw the old man, they faintly felt a threatening pressure. The old man was an expert on the same level as Feng Lilua. He might even be stronger than Feng Lilua. Thinking of this, the two of them revealed a serious expression. However, when they heard the second half of the elder's words, they looked confused. Star Sovereign asked instinctively, do we have to receive the invitation of the Sorcerer tribe's high priest to attend the Sorcerer Song Conference? If we don't receive the invitation, we can't attend the Sorcerer Song Conference. When the Purple Star Sovereign said this, the smile on Itaiha's old face could not help but stiffen. His gaze turned strange. Haha, this is hilarious. You're really two country bumpkins. You don't even know about the invitation of the Sorcerer tribe's high priest. How dare you say you're here to attend the Sorcerer Song Conference? Country bumpkins, like you should leave Sorcerer God City as soon as possible. You won't have the chance to participate in the Sorcerer Song Gathering. Qianping laughed loudly. Her words were filled with mockery. The indifferent young man standing on the other side of Itaiha raised his chin slightly, his eyes also revealing a look of disdain. As for the rest of the team, they all sneered along with Qianping. Although they didn't say anything sarcastic, their sneers made people feel uncomfortable. Qianping, stop fooling around. Don't blame me for punishing you to face the wall. Itaihi said unhappily. This sentence was very effective. Qianping immediately did not dare to make a sound. Clearly, she was very afraid of facing the wall when Itaiha spoke of. After intimidating Qianping, Itaiha looked at Zhuowen and crepe myrtle star monarch with a much colder attitude. Since the two of you did not receive an invitation from the high priest of the shaman tribe, it seems like we are not on the same path. I'll take my leave now. After Itaiha finished speaking, he planned to lead his team and pass by Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen stopped Itaiha. My friend, what do you mean by this? Although Itaiha, treat people politely, I treat my enemies differently, Itaiha said with a gloomy expression. Zhuowen cupped his fists and said with a smile, Old Mr. E, we don't mean any harm. We just want to ask about the invitation. We heard from others that the Sorcerer Song Conference is held in the Eldritch territory and all alien tribes with a bone age of less than 10,000 years can participate. Why is it that what I heard is completely different from what you said? Do you need an invitation to participate in the Sorcerer Song Conference? The corners of Itaiha's mouth curled up slightly. However, his smile was full of mockery. Ha! You are indeed country bumpkins. It seems like you are from an unknown tribe. You didn't even receive an invitation. To tell you the truth, the high priest of the shaman tribe, Wu Wuxian, has sent out 10,000 invitation letters to the top 10 tribes and the famous tribes. As long as you have these invitation letters, you are qualified to enter the inner city of the Sorcerer God City. You can also participate in the official Sorcerer Song Conference. As for those who did not receive an invitation letter, they can only stay in the outer city. If they want to enter the inner city and be qualified to participate in the Sorcerer Song Conference, they can only compete with the other trash for a small number of places. Ha! When you enter the outer city, you can compete with those trash like you for a small number of places. Qianping laughed coldly. Qianping, let's go. Don't talk nonsense. Yi Taiha pulled Qianping and entered the Sorcerer God City without saying goodbye to Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star. Zhuowen did not care about Yi Taiha's sudden change in attitude. He was thinking about Qianping's words. Brother Zhua, it seems like the Sorcerer God City is divided into the inner city and the outer city. We don't have the background of a big tribe, so we can only compete with those geniuses from the small tribes. Crepe Myrtle Star said, let's go in and find out the conditions to enter the inner city. Anyway, there are still 10 days before the Sorcerer Song Conference officially begins. Before Zhuowen finished speaking, his body suddenly stiffened, and he looked at the sky with his back facing the city gate. Crepe Myrtle Star noticed the abnormality and followed Zhuowen's gaze. He saw a huge flying divine artifact that was burning with flames. The flying divine artifact landed at the city gate, and 4 figures walked down from it. Among the 4 figures, Crepe Myrtle Star was very familiar with 2 of them. The 2 figures turned out to be the Phoenix Masters of the Phoenix people, Feng Lilua and Feng Bumming. The other 2 figures were a man and a woman. Judging from their attire, they should also be from the Phoenix people. Feng Lilua is indeed not dead. Brother Zhua, are you all right? Crepe Myrtle Star quickly noticed that Zhuowen's body was trembling. He seemed to be extremely agitated, and his eyes were filled with intense killing intent. He quickly reminded him. Zhuowen took a deep breath and withdrew the killing intent in his eyes. The killing intent in his eyes was not targeted at Feng Lilua and Feng Bumming. Although he wanted to kill them, it was not enough to make him lose his composure. It was mainly the man and woman beside Feng Lilua and Feng Bumming, because they were the Grand Elder Muyu and the Third Elder and Yen of the Phoenix people. He had heard from the Phoenix people that the Grand Elder and the Third Elder had left the Phoenix people with Mu Chinxue. Now that the 2 of them had returned, but he did not see Mu Chinxue. This made Zhuowen have the urge to grab the Grand Elder and the Third Elder and question them. However, his rationality suppressed his impulse. Although he was anxious to know Mu Chinxue's whereabouts, he knew that he would not be able to take down the Grand Elder. However, he knew very well that if he rushed up now, not only would he not be able to take down the First Elder and the Third Elder, he would also attract the attention of the Sorcerer tribe. Moreover, he still needed to participate in the Sorcerer Song Conference to obtain the Sorcerer Venomous Worms from the 3 corpses in the Ancestral Sorcerer Magical Pond. As long as he obtained the 3 Ancestral Sorcerer Venomous Worms, Zhuowen was confident that his Panga's sacred body would be upgraded to 8 stars. At that time, Zhuowen's strength would increase greatly. Even if he was in the Sorcerer God City, the Sorcerer tribe's nest, he would not be afraid. As for the Phoenix people, he would be eliminated in the Sorcerer God City and interrogate the Grand Elder about Mu Chinxue's whereabouts. I'm fine. Brother Crepe Myrtle, let's enter the Sorcerer God City first. Zhuowen shook his head. Chapter 33:14. Cocoon Wu Sorcerer God City was indeed spacious and prosperous. It was many times more luxurious than the Phoenix people's main city. After Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star entered Sorcerer God City, they found a random inn. This inn was not big and was located in a remote area. Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star had deliberately chosen this inconspicuous inn. After all, the two of them had caused trouble for the Phoenix people and destroyed the mysterious Sky Auction House. Although the two of them had changed their appearances and even their auras, the two of them did not want to be too ostentatious. Naturally, they chose to stay in a remote area. After entering the inn, Zhuowen realized that there were many foreign races at the tables on the first floor. What surprised him was that most of the foreign races at the tables had very low cultivation bases. There were even foreign races that had yet to reach Dao validation. Even the most powerful of them had just reached Dao validation not long ago. Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star had concealed their auras beforehand. When the two of them entered the inn, they did not attract the attention of the foreign races. They thought that they were just ordinary foreign races. Are the two of you here to stay? A foreign being who was dressed as a waiter hurried over with a warm smile on his face. Do you have any guest rooms here? Zhuowen asked. Yes, there are many more. Both of you should be staying in the inn, right? The waiter asked. Yes, get the best room for the two of us. Zhuowen said. All right. The waiter asked Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star to wait for a while before he went to check them in. The two of them casually sat at a table nearby and were immediately attracted by the sound of the table in the middle of the first floor. The table in the middle of the room was especially large and round. At this moment, the round table was filled with foreign races. These foreign races had even gathered in groups around the round table. It was so crowded that not even a drop of water could pass through. These foreign races were all listening with great interest to a foreign being at the center of the round table who was speaking with fervor and assurance. Originally, Zhuowen did not care. However, when this foreign race person talked about the conditions to enter the inner city, he immediately perked up. He had originally planned to find someone to ask about the conditions to enter the inner city after settling down in the inn. Now that this person was talking about it, he was naturally interested. Cocoon Wu, don't keep us in suspense. You are the most well-informed here. You know how the selection process to enter the inner city is conducted. Why don't you tell everyone about it so that we can be mentally prepared? One of the foreign race members said to the foreign race member who was speaking confidently. This foreign race person who was surrounded in the middle was called Cocoon Wu. He was from an extremely small race that was not well known. Of course, this inn was located in the worst location in the Sorcerer God City. It was also the cheapest inn. Most of the people who stayed here were nobodies. As for the truly large and medium-sized clans, they naturally wouldn't stay in such low-class inns. Wu, don't be anxious. Everyone should know that the sorcerer race has given 10,000 invitation letters to the real big clans in the great desolate heaven realm. The 10,000 geniuses from the big clans who received the invitation letters were directly qualified to enter the inner city. I think you guys should know about it too, right? Cocoon, Wu said proudly. Nonsense, we naturally know about this. However, this has nothing to do with us small clans. Why are you talking about this? One of the foreign race people frowned to express his dissatisfaction. Hee, everyone, don't be anxious. Listen to me carefully. The sorcerer race directly gave those big clans 10,000 spots. Do you know how many spots he gave us small clans to compete for? Cocoon Wu said mysteriously. It's definitely far more than 10,000. After all, the number of small clans far exceeds the number of big clans by who knows how many times. If there are still only 10,000 spots, then it's too little. The competition will definitely be too intense. Someone echoed. Cocoon Wu sneered. 10,000? You guys are taking it for granted. Let me tell you the truth. There are only 1,000 spots for us to compete for. Yes, you didn't hear wrongly. The sorcerer race only took out 1,000 spots to send us small clans away. The table immediately fell silent, but it quickly became noisy again. The many foreign races gathered around the table were filled with righteous indignation. Their eyes were spitting fire, and they were unable to restrain their anger. But very quickly, they fell silent powerlessly. They also knew that no matter how dissatisfied they were, it was useless. As the #1 clan in the great desolate heaven realm, the sorcerer race was a colossus to them. It was authority. No matter how angry they were, it was useless. They still had to follow the rules of the sorcerer race. Although the sorcerer race did not do this properly, it's already very good that they gave us small clans a chance. We have nothing to complain about. Furthermore, I also received internal news that the selection method for the inner city quota should be carried out by directly breaking through the inner city's heaven gate. Cocoon Wu said, "Inner city's heaven gate? Isn't that the gate to enter the inner city? Does that gate still need to be broken through? Or is it a competition to see who's faster?" A foreign race person asked. "I'm not too sure about the specifics. It's said that there will be obstacles. As for what it is, I feel that it will be announced when the selection begins." Cocoon Wu said helplessly. For the next period of time, Cocoon Wu continued to talk about the heavens and earth. The other foreign races also continued to listen to him. Zhuowen and the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's rooms were also prepared. However, they did not return to their rooms. Instead, they continued to sit at the table. 2 hours later, Cocoon Wu bid farewell to everyone and left the inn. Zhuowen and the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign followed him out. "The two of you have been following me since you left the inn. May I know what's the matter?" When turning into an alley, Cocoon Wu turned around and stared indifferently at Zhuowen and the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign in front of him. Zhuowen was not surprised. He and the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign did not hide their tracks. If Cocoon Wu still did not notice them, it would be too fake. Zhuowen smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, this one is Long One. He is the Purple Star Sovereign. We followed you mainly because we wanted to ask you about the inner city's heaven gate. If fellow Taoist can tell us in detail, this Long will not treat you unfairly." Cocoon Wu looked at Zhuowen with interest. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile as he said with a slightly mocking tone, "I, Cocoon Wu, have a very high status. I'm afraid I won't be interested in what you give me." If I'm not wrong, Brother Cocoon Wu should have just stepped into the second step of Tao, confirming not long ago, "This profound lily pill will be of great benefit to you in consolidating your heaven's mandate realm. I wonder if you'll be interested in this divine pill." Zhuowen took out a slightly greenish-yellow divine pill and shook it in front of Cocoon Wu. Cocoon Wu, who originally did not care, could not help but widen his eyes. At the same time, he said excitedly, "I didn't expect fellow Taoist Long to have such a good thing. This thing will definitely be of interest to me. I urgently need it. If fellow Taoist Long gives this divine pill to me, I will tell you everything I know." Zhuowen smiled and handed the profound lily pill to Cocoon Wu. Cocoon Wu carefully accepted the profound lily pill. After checking that there was no problem with the divine pill, he said enthusiastically, "I wonder what fellow Taoist Long wants to ask about the inner city's heaven gate. I want to ask if I need to register to participate in the selection, and where is the inner city's heaven gate?" Zhuowen asked, Chapter 33:15. The gate of heaven in the inner city. What? The registration deadline is over? Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch were shocked. "Brother Cocoon, did you get the wrong information? There are still 10 days before the Sorcerer's Song gathering. How could the registration deadline be over so soon?" Zhuowen asked doubtfully. This is the rule of the sorcerer tribe. We can't change it. If you don't believe me, I can take you to the gate of heaven in the inner city. The registration area is set there. There should be some disciples of the sorcerer tribe who haven't moved yet. You can go there and ask. Cocoon said calmly. Zhuowen and Crepe, Myrtle, Star Monarch looked at each other and nodded in agreement. Cocoon led Zhuowen and Crepe, Myrtle, Star Monarch through a few bustling streets and stopped in front of an extremely tall city wall. In the middle of the city wall, there was a rectangular gate that stood upright. Below the gate, there was a continuous bluestone staircase. There were thousands of steps on the bluestone staircase, and each step emitted a crystal-clear green color. This is the gate of heaven in the inner city. After entering the gate of heaven, you will arrive at the inner city, which is also the core city of the sorcerer tribe. Cocoon pointed at the huge rectangular gate and said. Zhuowen sized up the gate of heaven in the inner city, and his gaze turned grave. Inside the heaven gate of the inner city, he discovered streams of mysterious array Dao energy. With his level of array Dao, he could tell that the array Dao energy was emitted by a heaven pass level array. Although the heaven connecting array on the heaven gate of the inner city had yet to be activated, Zhuowen knew that once it was activated, it would definitely be an extremely terrifying array. Zhuowen also felt that if he faced the heaven pass level array, he might not be able to break it in a short period of time. I didn't expect that there would be such a powerful array Dao master in the sorcerer tribe, Zhuowen muttered to himself. Zhuowen's voice was soft, but Cocoon heard it. He sneered and said, Brother Long, you don't know, right? The high priest of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Wuxian, is the array Dao master in the entire Eldritch Heaven realm. This is publicly acknowledged. Brother Long, don't you know? Of course, I know, the high priest of the sorcerer tribe. I was just sighing. Brother Cocoon. By the way, that should be the registration area. Zhuowen's gaze landed on a temporary hut in a remote corner of the inner city's heavenly gate. There were a few young disciples of the sorcerer tribe were packing in something when Zhuowen and the other two arrived in front of the hut. The sorcerer tribe disciples did not even look at them. They continued with their own business. Fellow Taoist, can I still register for the quota to enter the inner city today? Zhuowen cupped his hands and asked a young woman. The appearance of the sorcerer tribe was similar to that of the human tribe. The only difference was that their skin was not white, but other colors. There were red, blue, green, and many other colors. This female sorcerer tribe member's skin was red. Even her eyes were red. She looked rather strange. The registration period is over. You can leave. The sorcerer sect woman said coldly. Zhuowen frowned and was slightly unwilling to give up. Fellow Taoist, can you make an exception? My friend and I just arrived at Shaman God City today, and we didn't know that the registration period had already passed. So, before Zhuowen could finish, he was interrupted by the sorcerer sect woman. Who do you think you are? Our registration time is fixed. Are you going to change it because of your time? You're so ostentatious. Crepe Myrtle Star narrowed his eyes. Just as he was about to teach the sorcerer sect woman a lesson, he was stopped by Zhuowen. In that case, let's go. Zhuowen said and left the registration area with Crepe Myrtle Star and Cocoon Wu. When they were far away, Zhuowen looked at Cocoon Wu and said, Brother Cocoon Wu, can you help us get a spot? If you can do it, I'll give you a Xianji pill as a reward. Cocoon Wu, who originally did not care, nearly jumped up in excitement the moment he heard about the Xianji pill. The Xianji pill was a divine pill that consolidated Cocoon Wu's recent advancement to Heavenly Fate Lord. While the Xianji pill's grade was even higher than the Xianji pill, it was a powerful divine pill that could help Cocoon Wu advance to Heavenly Fate Lord. Originally, After Cocoon Wu advanced to Heavenly Fate Lord and completely stabilized his realm, he planned on inquiring about the whereabouts of the Xianji pill. After all, this divine pill was the key to his future advancement to Heavenly Fate Lord. It was just that he did not expect that this long one in front of him could actually take out such a divine pill. This made Cocoon Wu view Zhuowen a few more times. In his heart, he already subconsciously thought of Zhuowen as a wealthy man. Brother Long, if you can really take out that Xianji pill, I can help the two of you get a spot. It's just that this is your one-sided statement. As for whether you have the Xianji pill on you or not, I'm not sure either. So, Cocoon Wu rubbed his hands and said, Zhuowen did not talk nonsense either. He took out a Xianji pill and placed it in front of Cocoon Wu. That thick medicinal strength immediately hit him head-on. Cocoon Wu's eyes became wide saucers. He dared to be 100% certain that this divine pill in front of him was indeed the Xianji pill that he yearned for even in his dreams. It was just that what made him somewhat disappointed was that Zhuowen put away the Xianji pill very quickly. Believe my words now, right? Zhuowen said coolly. Cocoon Wu hurriedly nodded his head and said, believe, Brother Long. The spot that you want, I'll absolutely help you get it. It's just that you're also aware that it's very hard for me to get a spot. You want 2 spots this time. 1 Xianji pill is probably not enough, right? I don't have much on me either. How many do you want? Zhuowen said coldly, I just want 3. Cocoon Wu said, 2, no more. Zhuowen replied coldly. Hearing that, Cocoon Wu could only compromise and get 2 then. After reaching an agreement, Cocoon Wu let Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star, Lord, 2 people return to the inn first and wait for a few days. He would help the 2 of them settle the matter of the spots in these few days. Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star, Lord, naturally had no objections. After the 2 people returned to the inn, they basically went into closed seclusion to cultivate too. Time flowed by quietly. 3 days passed. On this day, someone knocked on Zhuowen's door. Zhuowen swept with his divine sense and immediately discovered Cocoon Wu outside the door. At the same time, there was even a black-clothed foreign race following beside Cocoon Wu. This foreign race was very tall and did not look young. The skin on his face was greenish-purple. The moment Zhuowen swept a glance at this foreign race, he knew that this foreign race was actually a member of the shaman race. It was just that this shaman race's cultivation was very ordinary, just a little stronger than Cocoon Wu. He was just Lord Xianji. Zhuowen opened the door and said with a grin, Brother Cocoon Wu, you're finally here. Quickly come in and have a seat. Chapter 33:16. As soon as the sorcerer came in, he sat on the main seat, which made Zhuowen raise his eyebrows. After Cocoon Wu came in, he quickly explained to Zhuowen, this is Lord Hao Dang. He was also the disciple of the sorcerer tribe in charge of the registration. This time, I've invited him here to open a back door for you. Zhuowen nodded and cupped his hands to Hao Dang, but did not say anything. As soon as Hao Dang came in, he put on an arrogant face. This made Zhuowen very unhappy, so he was too lazy to say anything polite. Hao Dang also saw Zhuowen's slightly perfunctory attitude. He narrowed his eyes and immediately put on a sour face. You're long one, right? I heard that you need 2 spots to participate in the inner city's Heaven Gate. Hao Dang said coldly. Yes, as long as fellow Taoist Hao Dang can help me get 2 spots. I will definitely reward you generously. Zhuowen said in a deep voice, and I do have 2 spots, but how do you plan to reward me generously? I heard from Cocoon Wu that you seem to have a lot of divine pills on you. Hao Dang laughed. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist Hao Dang, you must be joking. I don't have many divine pills on me. The divine pills I gave to Brother Cocoon Wu before are also the few I have. Although I don't have any divine pills on me, I have an eternal level divine medicine. As long as fellow Taoist Hao Dang can help me get 2 spots, I don't care about this eternal level divine medicine. Zhuowen showed a pained expression and said with difficulty, "Eternal level divine medicine? Let me see, what kind of divine medicine is it?" Hao Dang said with a burning gaze, "Fellow Taoist Hao Dang, can you show me the spots first? If I see the spots, I will naturally show you the eternal level divine medicine, and I will give it to you directly." Zhuowen said. Hao Dang snorted coldly and said, Hao Dang, am also a disciple of the sorcerer tribe. What kind of divine medicine have I not seen? Why would I deceive you, a mere small clan? If you don't want the quota, then forget about this deal." Zhuowen took a deep look at Hao Dang, then took out a divine herb from his macro world and said, "Watch carefully, my friend." It was a small flower that emitted a faint blue light. This flower only had 4 petals, and each petal was as clear as crystal. In particular, the cool and refreshing feeling emanating from Little Flower's surface made everyone feel refreshed and comfortable. It's really the Ziyang glazed flower, an eternal divine herb. Hao Dang was also stunned. His cultivation was only at the 2nd realm of the 2nd step of the Tao confirming realm, so he hadn't seen many eternal level divine medicines that were 1 level higher than his realm. However, he had seen this Ziyang glazed flower before. Moreover, the Ziyang colored glass flower didn't need to be refined into a divine pill. It could directly absorb the energy within it for cultivation. The effect of this divine herb was extremely beneficial to the cultivation of all cultivators in the 2nd step of Tao validation, including eternal overlords. It could be said that this divine medicine was of great help to lord profound secrets like Hao Dang. Hao Dang involuntarily went to grab the Ziyang glazed flower, but Zhuowen's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick. He put away the Ziyang glazed flower before Hao Dang could. Hao Dang's face turned ugly as he looked at Zhuowen. He said sternly, "What do you mean by this, my friend Long? I just wanted to take a look at the Ziyang glazed flower. Why are you so stingy that you won't even let me see it?" Zhuowen merely looked calmly at the exasperated Vast Tharch and said indifferently, "As long as fellow Taoist Vast Tharch gives that spot to me, this divine herb will immediately be yours. And after all, you're a disciple of the sorcerer tribe. Your status is much higher than mine, and I'm in Sorcerer God City. There's no way I would play any tricks in front of fellow Taoist Vast." Hao Dang looked very displeased, but he still took out 2 tokens from his spirit ring and handed them to Zhuowen. The surface of the token that Hao Dang took out was filled with complicated patterns. When these patterns were combined together, they formed a strange pattern. This pattern was like a strange eyeball that had been staring at him all this time. The moment Zhuowen saw the tokens, he knew that they were strange and couldn't be easily imitated. Cocoon Wu, who was standing to the side, also took out his token to prove that the quota token Hao Dang took out was definitely not fake. Zhuowen took the 2 tokens, took out the Ziyang glazed flower again, and handed it to Hao Dang. Hao Dang took the Ziyang glazed flower excitedly, and his eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement. After carefully looking at the Ziyang glazed flower, he put it into his spirit ring. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he looked at Zhuowen with a smile and continued, "Fellow Long, your Ziyang glazed flower is not bad, but I don't think it's enough to exchange for 2 quotas, unless you hand over something of the same value." Zhuowen put away the 2 tokens, looked at Hao Dang indifferently, and said, "Fellow Hao Dang, you said it yourself that this Ziyang glazed flower can be exchanged for 2 quota tokens. Are you going back on your word now?" Hao Dang smiled and continued, "That's not it. I just think that the value of this Ziyang glazed flower is not as good as the 2 tokens. If Fellow Long thinks that I'm asking for too much, then let's forget about this deal. Give me back the 2 quota tokens. Zhuowen's face darkened. He threw the 2 quota tokens to Hao Dang and said coldly, "Since Fellow Hao Dang isn't sincere about making a deal with me, then forget it. Give me back the Ziyang glazed flower." Although Zhuowen was determined to get the 2 quotas, Zhuowen knew that Hao Dang was going to ask for too much. If he compromised, Hao Dang would definitely ask for more. Moreover, he was sure that Hao Dang wasn't the only one who had the quota tokens. The other disciples of the sorcerer tribe also had them. He didn't have to trade with Hao Dang. Hao Dang took the quota tokens in a daze. He didn't expect Zhuowen to cancel the deal so easily. This caught him off guard. However, Hao Dang quickly came back to his senses. He put away the 2 quota tokens and said indifferently, "If that's the case, then the deal is canceled." With that, Hao Dang stood up and planned to leave the room. However, Zhuowen stopped Hao Dang. "Fellow Long, what are you trying to do? How dare you block my way?" Hao Dang said coldly, "Fellow Hao Dang, please return my Ziyang glazed flower." Zhuowen said indifferently. Hao Dang's face darkened. "When did I take your Ziyang glazed flower? You didn't take out anything in the deal, just now." As he spoke, he looked at Cocoon Wu and said, "Cocoon Wu, did you see Fellow Long take out that Ziyang glazed flower?" Cocoon Wu quickly smiled and said, "No, just now, Lord Hao Dang took out 2 quota tokens for Fellow Long to take a look. There was no Ziyang glazed flower." Hao Dang nodded solemnly. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and warned, "Fellow Long, as a disciple of the sorcerer tribe, I have the right to imprison you in the dungeon to reflect on your actions." Chapter 33:17. The selection begins. Zhuowen's gaze turned cold. He knew that Hao Dang was going to renege on his promise. He was still standing in front of the door. Instead, he looked at Cocoon Wu and said calmly, "Fellow cultivator Cocoon Wu, I gave you 2 mystery pills out of goodwill so that you could help me with my business. But now you actually colluded with this person to deceive me. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" Hao Dang looked at Cocoon Wu when he heard about the mystery pills. Cocoon Wu had never mentioned the mystery pills to him. It seemed that it was time to teach this guy a lesson. How dare he deceive him? Cocoon Wu's eyes were filled with hatred. He knew that Zhuowen had said that on purpose. Even if he left this place, he wouldn't be able to keep the mystery pills on him. He knew Hao Dang's character very well. This person was extremely greedy and would do anything just because he was a disciple of the sorcerer tribe. "Cocoon Wu, you're really something. If you don't treat me well when we get back, I'll make you suffer. And you get out of my way." Hao Dang pointed at Cocoon Wu and said. He then pushed Zhuowen, intending to push Zhuowen away. However, Hao Dang didn't push him away. Instead, he was pushed back by a force. Before he could react, an even more powerful force came at him like a sharp sword and pierced his chest. Hao Dang didn't even have time to scream before he fell to the ground. His spirit was completely destroyed at this moment. Cocoon Wu was stunned. He watched as Zhuowen slowly walked to Hao Dang's side and took off his spirit ring. He couldn't say a word. After Zhuowen took off Hao Dang's spirit ring, he used his divine sense to check it. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the 2 entry tokens inside. He waved his sleeve and shot out a divine flame. After burning Hao Dang's body to ashes, Cocoon Wu quickly knelt in front of him. "Lord Long One, these are your mystery pills and mystery pills." Cocoon Wu didn't mean to do it. "I was forced by Hao Dang." Now that Lord Long One has destroyed Hao Dang, it's really satisfying. As Cocoon Wu spoke, he took out the profound mystery pill and profound lotus pill that Zhuowen had given him before. He spread out his hands and presented them to Zhuowen. Zhuowen gave Cocoon Wu a deep look. This Cocoon Wu was truly a fence-sitter. He had switched sides rather quickly. Zhuowen retrieved the profound secrets pill and the profound beauty pill. Cocoon Wu, who was kneeling on the ground, let out a sigh of relief. He thought venomously in his heart, if he left this place this time, he would immediately go to the shaman clan to inform them. He would definitely make Long Wen die, without a burial ground. Cocoon Wu, after returning this time, you should be planning to inform the sorcerer tribe, right? Zhuowen's indifferent voice sounded. Cocoon Wu's pupils contracted, and he hurriedly denied. How is that possible? Lord Longwen, I would never do such a thing. You have to believe me. Just as Cocoon Wu finished speaking, Zhuowen's finger had already pressed against his forehead. I believed you once, but unfortunately, you lied to me. You have to know that I don't like to fall into the same pit a second time. Cocoon Wu only felt an unbearable pain between his brows. Then, an extremely powerful wave of energy struck his forehead, causing it to completely collapse into nothingness. He also lost consciousness in the end. Zhuowen looked coldly at the fallen Cocoon Wu. He swiftly took off Cocoon Wu's spirit ring and burned him to ashes with his divine fire. The moment Zhuowen stopped Hao Dang, he secretly set up a large shielding array in the room. In addition, Zhuowen's battle was very quiet, so it did not alarm the other foreign races in the inn. However, Purple Star Sovereign was an expert at the late stage of the sky-piercing realm after all. He immediately noticed it. When Zhuo Wengang destroyed Cocoon Wu, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign knocked on the door. Brother Zhuo, what happened? Purple Star Sovereign asked after entering the room. Zhuo Wen told Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign everything that had happened. He took out a slot token and handed it to Crepe Myrtle Star. Hao Dang is a disciple of the sorcerer tribe after all. If he mysteriously disappeared, the sorcerer tribe might investigate. This inn is not suitable for us to stay in. Let's move out immediately. Purple Star Sovereign suggested. Zhuowen nodded. He had the same idea. Hao Dang's cultivation was not low, and he could even get 2 quota tokens. He probably had a good status in the sorcerer tribe. The sorcerer tribe would definitely investigate if such an important disciple suddenly disappeared. The two of them packed up and left the inn on the same day. They chose an extremely high end inn that was far away from this inn and stayed there. Although the price of this high-end inn was much higher, it was nothing to Zhuowen and the others. A few days after Zhuowen and Purple Star Sovereign moved out, the people of the sorcerer tribe really came to the remote inn to investigate. After the people of the sorcerer tribe could not find out the truth, they actually slaughtered all the foreign races in the inn. Of course, this was all done in secret and did not cause much of an impact. Zhuowen and Purple Star Sovereign naturally did not know that such a thing had happened. Time gradually passed, and soon it was the day to enter the inner city's gate of heaven. On this day, the huge square in front of the gate of heaven in the inner city was packed with countless members of the outsiders. Zhuowen and the Crepe Myrtle Star monarch also arrived at the square. In front of the square, there was an open space of nearly 1,000 square meters. It was strangely much more spacious, and no foreign races came forward to crowd it. Zhuowen noticed that there were 3 experts of the sorcerer tribe standing in the open space. What surprised Zhuowen was that these 3 experts of the sorcerer tribe were all experts in the early stage of the Master of Heaven ascension. The powerful aura emitted from their bodies caused many of the foreign races in the square to show fear and reverence. One of the red-skinned sorcerer tribesmen walked forward and said loudly, "I am Xiao Lei, an elder of the sorcerer tribe. These 2 are Elder Han Yu and Elder Gao Miao." The elder of the sorcerer tribe, named Xiao, lay pointed at the two blue-skinned and green-skinned elders of the sorcerer tribe beside him and introduced them to everyone. The opening of the sorcerer tribe's ancestral sorcerer magical pond is a grand occasion. We welcome all friends of the large tribes to come and support us. However, before the Sorcerer's Song Festival, everyone must first obtain the qualifications to enter the inner city. Today is the selection to enter the inner city, so the three of us will host it. The selection this time is very simple. That is, whoever enters the gate of heaven first will obtain the qualifications to enter the inner city. We plan to select 1,000 contestants, so the first 1,000 to reach the gate of heaven will successfully obtain the qualifications to enter the inner city. When Xiao Lei said this, many of the foreign races in the square who were participating in the selection did not agree. In particular, some of the foreign races who were good at movement techniques were secretly pleased, thinking that this selection was beneficial to them. Zhuowen's gaze was solemn as he looked at the steps in front of the gate of heaven. There were a total of thousands of steps, but there should be an extremely powerful gravitational array on the steps. Any of the foreign races who entered the steps would definitely be affected by the gravitational array. This was also thanks to Zhuowen's knowledge of arrays. Otherwise, he would not have been able to see the trick on the steps. Now let's begin. The contestants who hold the entry tokens can enter the steps and fight for the top 1,000 spots. You can use any method to obtain the top 1,000 spots. After Xiao Lei finished speaking, he waved his sleeve and a heavy pressure appeared on the steps below the gate of heaven. It was obvious that he had activated the array on the steps. Chapter 33:18. Elder of the Sorcerer Tribe Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star looked at each other, then blended into the crowd and rushed towards the heavenly gate. However, Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star did not rush to the front. Instead, they were in the middle of the crowd. They did not want to stand out too much. All they needed to do was to get into the top 1,000. The moment the foreign races at the front reached the steps, they all fell off the steps. They had planned to use their movement techniques to rush to the heavenly gate. They did not even plan to climb the steps. However, the terrifying gravity on the stairs was like countless mountains crashing down on the outsiders, crushing them and causing them to fall onto the stairs. Some of the foreign races were even seriously injured. Many of their bones were broken, and they could not even get up. After learning from the mistakes of the foreign races at the front, the foreign races at the back all slowed down and slowly landed on the steps. They all noticed that there was an extremely strong pressure on the steps. If they were like the foreign races at the front, they would definitely fall miserably. The moment Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star stepped onto the first step, their bodies sank. They felt the surrounding pressure acting on them like a tidal wave. They could not help but be rooted to the ground, like an old tree rooted to the ground. This pressure was indeed strong. However, it did not affect Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star much. They were too strong. If they wanted to, they could rush to the heavenly gate in a breath's time. However, they did not do so. Instead, they walked forward slowly, like the other foreign races. Although the two of them didn't walk very fast, they maintained their rankings within the top 1,000. Boom! Suddenly, not far from Zhuowen, a foreign race who was lagging behind suddenly exploded. He punched the back of the foreign race who was not far ahead of him. A scream rang out. The foreign race who was leading did not even have time to react and was severely injured. Then, he was kicked down the steps by the foreign race behind him. After this precedent was set, chaos broke out on the steps. All of the outsider races who were lagging behind began to attack the outsider races who were in the lead. In order to prevent themselves from being ambushed by the foreign races behind them, the foreign races in the lead all chose to strike first. In an instant, the Heavenly Gates selection in the inner city, which was originally a competition of speed, became a chaotic battle that was almost uncontrollable. Zhuowen was originally moving forward in an orderly manner, but he suddenly felt a strong gust of wind sweeping towards him from the front and back. He immediately noticed that there was a foreign being attacking him from both the front and back, and they were all using killing moves. Zhuowen snorted coldly and threw out a punch at the two of them. The terrifying fist tore through the air and shattered the space. The moment Zhuowen's fists collided with the two aliens, they didn't even have the chance to make a sound before they were blasted into clouds of blood mist. Zhuowen was simply too powerful, and the foreign races participating in this selection were all from small races. Their strength was generally not strong. Although Zhuowen had only used 10% of his strength, it was enough to completely crush most of the foreign races participating in this selection. After Zhuowen easily killed the two foreign races, many of the surrounding foreign races noticed and began to subconsciously distance themselves from Zhuowen. The two foreign races who attacked Zhuowen just now were not weak, but they were easily killed by this person. From this, it could be seen how powerful this person was. This saved Zhuowen a lot of trouble. He knew very well that in this chaotic battle, if you were in a stalemate with your opponent, you would receive more attacks. If you crushed your opponent from the start, it would give the surrounding opponents the impression that you were not to be trifled with, and the subsequent attacks he would receive would naturally be much less. Zhuowen's current situation was like this. Although there were still some foreign races attacking Zhuowen, compared to the other foreign races in the lead, there were much fewer attacks. Not far away, Crepe Myrtle Star was in the same situation. Crepe Myrtle Star was even more ruthless. All the foreign races who attacked him were directly annihilated, including their corpses. This caused the number of foreign races around Crepe Myrtle Star to be even fewer than Zhuowen. At the same time, Zhuowen also noticed that at the very front of the stairs, there was a foreign race who was far in the lead. His strength was even more terrifying, and his methods were even more ruthless. Anyone who was close to him in the top 10 was all blown to smithereens by him. Logically speaking, the foreign races who could enter the top 10 of the stairs were not weak, but they could not even withstand a single blow from the foreign race in first place. This foreign race, who was far in the lead, was wearing a black tight suit. Even her face was covered with a black veil, making it impossible to see her exact appearance. Moreover, Zhuowen also noticed that this female foreign race's cultivation aura was very obscure. He actually could not detect how strong this woman's cultivation was. This made Zhuowen very surprised. His divine will had been nurtured by the Panga banner, and was far stronger than that of cultivators of the same level. However, he could not detect this woman's specific cultivation level. Zhuowen did not try to get close to this female foreign race. In other words, most of the foreign races stayed far away from this female foreign race. The main reason was that this female foreign race was really too ruthless. Any foreign race who approached her, even if they did not attack her, were cleanly dealt with by her. The other foreign races were not hotheads. Why would they go over to court death? When the female foreign race reached the inner city's heaven gate first, all the foreign races heaved a sigh of relief and began to fight crazily to compete for the remaining spots. Xiao Lei and the other two elders of the sorcerer tribe stood at the bottom of the stairs, their gazes fixed on the female foreign race who had already reached the inner city's heaven gate. I can't sense the specific cultivation level of this person in first place. It's really strange. Xiao Lei said curiously, "Me too, and I can't tell which race she belongs to. However, I guess she's at least in the second step of the Dao validation realm." Elder Gao Miao said in a low voice, "You don't have to guess. Since this first place does not have an invitation, she must be from some unknown small race. It's just that by chance, she obtained some powerful concealment technique. Why don't you think about it? How can a small race produce such a powerful genius? The geniuses selected this time are just for the sake of those small races. In fact, they are just cannon fodder. Elder Han Yu sneered. When Xiao Lei and Gao Miao heard this, they both nodded in agreement. They were the elders of the sorcerer tribe, the most powerful race in the primitive heavenly realm. They had a natural sense of superiority. Chapter 33:19. Jing Shan behind the heavenly gate in the inner city was a huge white jade floor. In the following period of time, there were many foreign tribes who arrived at the heavenly gate in the inner city and arrived at the white jade floor. Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign were among them. However, both of them kept a low profile and only arrived at the heavenly gate after being ranked outside the top 100. Perhaps it was an illusion, but the moment Zhuowen arrived at the heavenly gate in the inner city, the female foreign tribe member, who was standing in the corner, seemed to have glanced at him. The first 1,000 foreign tribes arrived at the heavenly gate in the inner city. The 3 elders of the sorcerer tribe flew past the stairs and arrived at the heavenly gate in the inner city. With a wave of their sleeves, a powerful energy shield was set up in front of the heavenly gate. The foreign tribes who were still struggling on the stairs were immediately blocked by the energy shield. The first 1,000 places have been selected. You don't have to struggle anymore. You may leave. After Xiao Lei finished speaking, he waved his sleeves, and a powerful force swept through the foreign tribes on the stairs like a gust of wind and brought them to the square at the bottom of the stairs. Many of the foreign beings' corpses on the stairs had been burned to ashes by his divine flames. Many of the foreign tribes who were sent back to the square were dejected and disappointed. They knew that they would not be able to participate in the upcoming Sorcerer Song gathering. The selection is over. Congratulations to the 1,000 people who successfully made it to the heavenly gate in the inner city. You have earned the right to participate in the Sorcerer's Song gathering. Xiao Lei congratulated the foreign tribes on the white jade floor with a smile. The foreign tribes on the white jade floor were all excited. Only the female foreign tribe member looked calm and did not seem to be excited. Next, I will bring you to the inner city and arrange accommodation for you. The Sorcerer's Song gathering will officially begin in 4 days. When the time is up, I will send someone to inform you to head to the gathering location. Xiao Lei said. No one objected, and they were willing to follow Xiao Lei's arrangements. After all, they had never been to the inner city and were not familiar with it. It was best for Xiao Lei to lead them. Although the inner city was not as big as the outer city, the heavenly energy here was more than 10 times that of the outer city. All of the foreign races that were brought in revealed looks of excitement. At the same time, there were very few outsiders in the inner city. Most of the people who came and went were disciples of the witch tribe. In the inner city, the most eye-catching building was the Sorcerer Tribe Hall, which was located in the center. In front of the Sorcerer Tribe's main hall, there were 12 gigantic statues that reached into the clouds. These 12 statues were none other than the 12 ancestral sorcerers who had existed since the beginning of the world. Soon, Xiao Lei led the group to the northwest corner of the inner city. This was a very remote area. In front of them were low-rise bungalows. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that the heavenly energy here was the weakest in the inner city. Of course, even the worst ones were several times more expensive than the ones in the outer city. There are 1,000 rooms in this bungalow. You can distribute them among yourselves. 4 days later, I will send someone to inform you. During these 4 days, you can move about freely in the inner city, but you are not allowed to go to the shaman tribe's main hall in the center. If you do, you will be killed on the spot. Also, bring your entry token. This is the symbol of your status. If you do not bring your entry token and wander around the inner city, if you are caught, you will be treated as an outsider and killed on the spot. After Xiao Lei finished speaking, he left without looking back. Next, everyone went to choose their own rooms. Soon, the bungalows were all allocated. Zhuowen discovered that after he had chosen his room, the mysterious female outsider chose the room next to his. As for the other outsiders who had chosen their rooms, when they saw the female outsider, they all hid far away and did not dare to go near her. After the mysterious female outsider chose her room and entered it, the other outsiders continued to choose their rooms. However, they all intentionally chose to stay far away from the female outsider's room. Zhuowen did not mind. This female outsider was not to be trifled with, but Zhuowen was not to be trifled with either. After entering the room, Zhuowen did not even have time to sit down when there was a knock on the door. When he opened the door to his room, he was surprised to find that the mysterious woman standing outside the door was the woman from another race. However, he quickly regained his senses and said calmly, "What's the matter, fellow Taoist? I have some things to ask you. Is it convenient for me to come in and talk?" The female outsider said indifferently, "No problem. Come in." Zhuowen moved aside and said. After closing the door, Zhuowen took out a pot of immortal wine and 2 wine cups from the outside world. He filled the cups and sat down in front of the female outsider. "My name is Jingshan. I can sense Panga's aura on you. Have you obtained Panga's inheritance?" Jingshan asked directly. Bang! Zhuowen's right hand, which was originally placed on the table, shook violently. A powerful aura burst out, and the table in front of him shattered into dust. Zhuowen stared coldly at Jingshan in front of him, killing intent surging in his eyes. However, he quickly calmed down and said, "Panga's inheritance? I don't know." At this moment, Zhuowen's heart was in turmoil. He was not calm at all. What was the origin of this female alien called Jingshan? How could he sense the inheritance of Pangu in his body? He had indeed obtained Pangu's inheritance and cultivated the Pangu's sacred body. However, he also had the Panga banner. Every time he used the Pangu's sacred body, the Panga banner would automatically cover up the aura of his Pangu's sacred body. This was also the main reason why many experts could not see through Zhuowen's physical inheritance when he used the Panga's sacred body in battle. However, this Jingshan was too amazing. Zhuowen had not even used the Panga's sacred body in front of this woman. However, she was able to sense Panga's aura from his body. This was a little too ridiculous. Or was this woman testing him? Don't think that I'm testing you, because I did sense Panga's aura on you. Answer my question. Have you obtained Panga's inheritance? Jingshan's voice became very strong as she asked again. Zhuowen was a little annoyed. This woman demanded an answer from him. She really thought that he was a soft persimmon to be squeezed. "Why must I answer you?" Zhuowen said coldly. "Because if you answer me yes, it will only be good for you. At the same time, it will also be a great fortune for you." Jingshan said lightly. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Zhuowen denied. "Don't you want to know where Pangu fell? If you answer me, I'll give you clues about where Pangu fell." Jingshan said. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and took a deep look at Jingshan. He could not see through this woman more and more. At the same time, he began to believe her words. He knew very well that someone who could sense Panga's aura on him was definitely not a simple person. Moreover, he was actually quite curious about the place where Pangu fell. He had always heard that Panga died because of the chaos, but he never knew where Panga died. When he obtained Panga's inheritance, it was mainly because of the Panga banner. From the Panga banner, he obtained the cultivation method of the Pangu's sacred body. Chapter 33, 20. Establishing a contract. Good. I can tell you that I didn't get Panga's inheritance. I only got the cultivation method of Panga's sacred body, but it's incomplete, Zhuowen said calmly. He didn't tell her about the Pangu banner. He felt that the Panga banner was more important than the cultivation method of Panga's sacred body. Sure enough, when Zhuowen mentioned Panga's sacred body, Jingshan's eyes lit up. You came to the Sorcerer's Song Conference to enter the Ancestral Sorcerer's magical pond and find the Ancestral Sorcerer's venomous worms to cultivate Panga's sacred body, right? Jingshan said. Zhuowen didn't deny it. He knew that since Jingshan knew about Panga's inheritance, she should have some understanding of the cultivation of Panga's sacred body. I've told you my secret. What about you? How did you sense Panga's aura on me? Zhuowen asked in a deep voice. It's my innate ability. You can rest assured. Your Panga's aura is very weak. Even the strongest experts at the peak of the sky-reaching realm wouldn't be able to sense your Panga's aura, Jingshan said. Zhuowen frowned. He could tell that Jingshan wasn't telling the truth. He suspected that Jingshan had something related to Pangu. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to sense his Panga's aura so easily. However, he didn't care. No matter how Jingshan sensed his Panga's aura, he didn't care. What he really cared about was the clue to Panga's place of death that Jingshan mentioned. Then, shouldn't Jingshan tell me more about Panga's place of death? Zhuowen asked in a deep voice. Jingshan nodded and said, Of course. Actually, Panga's place of death is right under our feet. You mean that Panga's place of death is deep underground where the sorcerer tribe lives? Zhuowen asked in surprise. Jingshan shook her head and said, It's not underground, but in the depths of the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. There is a mysterious teleportation array that even the sorcerer tribe should not have noticed. I suspect that the teleportation array leads to the place where Pangu fell. You haven't even been to the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. How can you be so sure that there's a teleportation array in there? And this teleportation array leads to the place where Pangu fell, Zhuowen asked doubtfully. Yes, I'm sure that's the case. It's because I obtained information about the place where Pangu fell from an ancient ruin. I won't lie to you about this. If you don't believe me, I can swear to the heavenly Tao, Jingshan said. Zhuowen took a deep look at Jingshan and remained silent for a while before saying, Since you know about the place where Pangu fell, you can go in by yourself and enjoy the benefits of the place alone. Why did you come to me? Wouldn't you share the benefits with me? Jingshan smiled and said, Since the sorcerer tribe held the first Sorcerer's Song Conference, I have already entered the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Over the countless years, I have entered the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond dozens of times. If I could enter the place where Pangu fell, I would have done so long ago. I have tried many times, but the teleportation array to the place where Pangu fell could not be activated. I knew that something must be missing. It was only when I sensed Panga's aura on you that I saw hope. I felt that you might be the key to activating the teleportation array. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and took a deep look at Jingshan. He did not believe her words at all. However, he did not care. He was indeed very interested in the place where Pangu fell. In addition, he was a divine array master. If he could be taken to the teleportation array, Zhuowen was confident that he could activate the teleportation array and enter the place where Pangu fell. So, you came to me to cooperate, right? Zhuowen said with a smile. Yes, if we cooperate, it will be a win-win situation. If we can really enter the place where Pangu fell, we will fight for the good things inside with our own abilities. What do you think? Jingshan suggested. That's great. However, to be on the safe side, let's make a contract first. Before we enter the place where Pangu fell, we must live in harmony and not attack each other. Zhuowen looked at Jingshan and said. Jingshan nodded and did not have any objections. She cut her finger and blood gushed out. She drew in the air and formed a rather vivid contract pattern. Zhuowen did the same. He pricked his finger and imprinted his blood essence on the contract pattern that was suspended in the air. Then, I wish us a pleasant cooperation. Jingshan divided the contract pattern in the air into two. She kept one and handed the other to Zhuowen. After the contract was made, Jingshan's expression was obviously more relaxed than before. At the same time, she also knew that Zhuowen's alias was Long One. After the two of them talked for a while, Jingshan suddenly suggested, Brother Long, there are still 4 days before the Sorcerer's Song Conference. On the day before the Sorcerer's Song Conference, the geniuses of the 10 great tribes will hold a large-scale trade fair. There will be top geniuses of the 10 great tribes and many other geniuses of the great tribes. A trade fair like this will often have a lot of good stuff. I wonder if fellow Taoist Long is interested in this trade fair. Oh, trade fair? I wonder if there will be any heavenly grade divine pills. Zhuowen asked with some interest. He was now a heavenly grade alchemist. He was qualified to try refining the 6 Desires Spirit Condensing Pill to save Moyan Wushang. The 6 Desires Spirit Condensing Pill was a heavenly grade divine pill. The main ingredient alone was made up of 6 heavenly grade divine pills. Among the 6 types of divine herbs, he had already found the 1,000-year flowerless eyes, red sun red, Buddha yellow water bamboo, and crimson moon star wave milk. The remaining 2 heavenly grade divine pills were the blazing phoenix leaf and the 3 realms flower 1,000 feathers. As long as he could collect these 2 divine pills, he would have collected all the ingredients for the 6 Desires Spirit Condensing Pill. If these 2 divine pills could appear in this large-scale trade fair, it would be the best for Zhuowen. That was why he was so eager to know if there would be any heavenly grade divine pills in this trade fair. Jingshan smiled faintly and said, This trade fair is very big. Not only will the younger generation of the top 10 clans participate in the trade, but even some powerful clan leaders will sometimes take out their treasures to trade with other clan leaders. Naturally, there will be heaven-reaching divine medicines. Of course, heavenly grade divine pills are too precious. The chances of them appearing are not high, but there is still a chance of them appearing. However, heavenly grade divine pills are very rare. They are much rarer than heavenly grade divine pills. After all, heavenly grade alchemists are too rare. Okay, 3 days later, I will go to the trade fair with Brother Jingshan. Zhuowen said with a nod. Chapter 33:21. Wu Xingyuan 3 days later, Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star walked out of their room. Zhuowen had already told Crepe Myrtle Star about the trade fair. Crepe Myrtle Star had also expressed his interest in the trade fair, so the two agreed to go together. Who is this Cultivator Long? Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star had not been out for long when a crisp voice interrupted their conversation. Zhuowen looked over and saw a tall and slender woman with a black veil covering her face walking towards them. It was Jingshan. Cultivator Jingshan, this is my friend Zixing. He is also very interested in the trade fair and plans to go with us. Zhuowen said, In that case, let's go together. Jingshan did not say anything and only nodded. Thus, the 3 of them went together. Jingshan's power was still lingering. Wherever the 3 of them passed, the alien races in the bungalow area would scurry away like rats, not daring to get close to Jingshan. The trade fair was held in a huge square not far from the Sorcerer Tribe's main hall. This square was the closest to the Sorcerer Tribe's main hall and the 12 ancestral sorcerer statues. At the same time, it was also the largest square in the inner city. At this moment, the square was bustling with noise and excitement. Most of the people inside were experts from various races. Zhuowen also noticed that the stronger the expert, the larger the area they occupied. At the same time, they would set up stalls and put the items they wanted to trade on the stalls to be sold. After entering the square, Jingshan separated from Zhuowen and walked around the square alone to look for good items. As for Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle's Star Monarch, they were walking around the plaza, looking at the treasures on display. It was an eye-opener for them. After walking for a while, Zhuowen found that most of the items that the alien races took out were materials or divine weapons. However, there were very few divine pills and formations. Even if there were, they were low-level divine pills and formations that Zhuowen did not care for. Furthermore, even the most valuable materials that these foreign tribes had brought out were only at the God of Creation stage. This made Zhuowen a little disappointed. His fortuitous encounters were far better than most cultivators, so the resources and materials in the great world were basically of the highest quality. With his current wealth, if the resources and materials were not of the heavenly master level, he would not be interested in them. Let's go and take a look. Wu Xingyuan, the #1 prodigy of the sorcerer tribe, is holding a small trading place there. All fellow cultivators are welcome to come and support him. It's said that the geniuses of the top 10 clans all gave Wu Xingyuan face and went to that place to make a deal with him. Suddenly, a few outsiders who passed by him started talking excitedly, attracting Zhuowen's attention. Speaking of which, he was quite interested in the geniuses of the 10 major races. Among the geniuses of the top 10 races, Zhuowen had only seen the Phoenix people's Saintess and Feng Bumming. Among them, Feng Bumming, as a junior, only spent a few thousand years to become a master of heaven ascension. His talent was astonishing. He had also heard that the Phoenix people's ranking among the top 10 races was only average, and Feng Bumming was not the real top genius. As the most powerful race in the primitive heavenly realm, the most powerful genius of the sorcerer tribe must be much stronger than Feng Bumming. Zhuowen also wanted to meet this person. Besides, the trade that Wu Xingyuan initiated would definitely be of a higher level than those in other places. He might also have a chance to trade for the divine medicine that he wanted. Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star discussed for a while, then followed the crowd to the front of the square. There were already quite a number of outsiders gathered there. As he got closer, Zhuowen discovered that there was a rather large platform in the middle of the encirclement of the outsiders. A young man from the sorcerer tribe with light golden skin stood on the platform with a smile on his face. The young man from the sorcerer tribe smiled warmly, but the aura on his body was exceptionally terrifying. It was as cold and piercing as the night wind. When Zhuowen arrived and saw the young man from the sorcerer tribe with light golden skin, his heart trembled. He actually felt an extremely strong sense of danger from the young man from the sorcerer tribe, as expected of the #1 genius of the sorcerer tribe. Has Wu Xingyuan's cultivation become stronger again? I actually feel a tingling sensation from the aura that he is emitting. You guessed right. Wu Xingyuan's cultivation used to be at the early stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension. After coming out of seclusion this time, his cultivation has increased greatly. He might have reached the middle stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension. His sorcerer body is extremely terrifying, and his bloodline is extremely powerful. It is said that he has reached the peak of the 8-star sorcerer body. He fought with the Master of Heaven Ascension in the sorcerer tribe. Even the Master of Heaven Ascension in the sorcerer tribe could not do anything to Wu Xingyuan. No way, so heaven-defying. Even the Master of Heaven Ascension in the sorcerer tribe could not do anything to him. Otherwise, how could he become the most dazzling genius in the primitive heavenly realm? Many experts of the older generation have already regarded Wu Xingyuan as an extremely strong opponent. The surrounding discussions made Zhuowen gradually understand how terrifying Wu Xingyuan was. At the same time, he was also a little puzzled. When he first obtained the inheritance of the sorcerer ancestor, he knew that the sorcerer tribe only cultivated their physical bodies. However, from the discussions of these foreign races, Wu Xingyuan not only cultivated a powerful sorcerer body, but also cultivated the way of heaven with other foreign races. In fact, what Zhuowen did not know was that after the sorcerer tribe had been passed down for countless years, the bloodline of the sorcerer ancestor in their bodies had become thinner and thinner, and it had become more and more difficult to prove the way of heaven with their physical bodies. The benefits of cultivating the way of heaven were also obvious. Its cultivation speed was far faster than cultivating the sorcerer body, so most of the foreign races gave up on cultivating the sorcerer body, which was difficult to cultivate. Only the sorcerer tribe with a powerful bloodline continued to cultivate the sorcerer body and the way of heaven. And Wu Xingyuan was such an expert who cultivated both the way of heaven and the sorcerer body. This was the main reason why his combat strength far exceeded the sorcerer tribe, who cultivated the way of heaven at the same level, and why he was valued by the higher-ups of the sorcerer tribe. This Wu Xingyuan is very powerful. I'm afraid that even if I were to use all my strength, I would at most be on par with him. Purple Star Sovereign suddenly whispered to Zhuowen. Hearing that, Zhuowen's eyes became extremely grave. He was very clear about the strength of Purple Star Sovereign. He had inherited the legacy of the undying bird and had a powerful bloodline. In addition, his cultivation had reached the later stage of the Master of Heaven. Even Purple Star Sovereign had said that he was not confident of defeating Wu Xingyuan, which showed how powerful and terrifying Wu Xingyuan was. I am Wu Xingyuan. Thank you all for coming. Wu Xingyuan stood on the high platform and cupped his fists at the foreign races around him. He continued, "The reason why I set up this high platform so ostentatiously is to attract as many friends as possible so that I can have a better chance of exchanging for what I need. Brother Xingyuan, you've already advanced to the middle stage of the Heavenly Master Realm. What do we have that could catch your eye?" A sinister voice rang out. Everyone looked over and saw a skinny foreign race member who looked like a mummy standing quietly in front of the other foreign races. This skinny foreign race member was surrounded by a strange black gas. Many of the foreign races around him kept a distance from him and did not dare to get close to him. It's Shifu, the genius of the Corpse Ghost clan. It is said that Shifu and Wu Xingyuan are not on good terms. It seems that the rumors are true. Shifu's words are obviously mocking Wu Xingyuan. Zhuowen looked at the skinny Shifu. He did not know much about the Corpse Ghost clan, but he knew that it was one of the top 10 clans. Chapter 33:22. Blazing Phoenix Exquisite. Leaf, the aura of this corpse was much more arrogant than Wu Xingyuan's. Zhuowen deliberately sensed that this corpse's cultivation was not as high as Wu Xingyuan's. It should only be at the peak of the early stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension. However, this corpse dared to provoke Wu Xingyuan. It should have its own strong points. Otherwise, it would not dare to go against Wu Xingyuan so openly. In addition to this corpse, Zhuowen also saw an acquaintance in front of the foreign tribe. This acquaintance was Feng Bumming of the Phoenix people. At this moment, Feng Bumming did not say a word. He just stood there silently. What surprised Zhuowen was that not only did Feng Bumming's cultivation not regress, but it also improved a little. He clearly remembered that he had destroyed Feng Bumming's physical body, and in the end, only his divine soul escaped. In order to raise Feng Bumming's cultivation to the peak, he must have paid a great price to reconstruct his physical body. It seemed that the Master of Heaven Ascension valued Feng Bumming very much. He was actually willing to pay such a price to restore Feng Bumming's physical body. Haha, I don't like the things on Brother Shifu, but it doesn't mean that I won't like the things on other cultivators. Wu Xingyuan said with a faint smile. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding foreign tribe members roared with laughter. The face of Shifu, who had spoken sarcastically, suddenly turned ugly. However, Shifu only snorted coldly and did not say another word. If Wu Xingyuan had not broken through in the past, he would have dared to challenge Wu Xingyuan. Now that Wu Xingyuan had broken through, his strength was much stronger than his. He did not want to expand the conflict with Wu Xingyuan. Seeing that Shifu had stopped talking, Wu Xingyuan did not continue to target Shifu. Instead, he took out a divine medicine that was filled with surging medicinal power from his spiritual ring. This was a leaf that was shaped like a phoenix's wing. This leaf was burning with a fiery red flame, and the leaf itself was exquisite, as if it was made of red crystal. When Zhuowen saw this leaf, his eyes could not help but widen, and his breathing became rapid. This was because this leaf was one of the 6 master of heaven-level divine medicine that he was looking for, the blazing phoenix leaf. The surrounding foreign tribes also recognized this heaven-piercing elixir, and a commotion broke out below. Many burning gazes were fixed on the heaven-piercing divine herb. This is the dazzling phoenix leaf, a transcending heaven-grade divine herb. The reason why I took out the transcending heaven-class elixir is to exchange it for a divine pill or other divine elixir that can help me consolidate my transcending heaven-class mid-stage. If any of you have such divine pills or herbs, Xingyuan will be happy to trade with you. Of course, if it's a divine pill, that would be the best. On top of that, I will also give some additional compensation to the fellow Taoist who makes the trade. After Wu Xingyuan finished speaking, he took out a small table from his spirit ring and placed the blazing phoenix leaf on it. Fellow Taoist Xingyuan, although I don't have any divine pills or herbs that can strengthen the cultivation of a mid-stage Heaven Ascension Lord, I do have the Heaven Ascension Ancient True Pellet, an early-stage Heaven Ascension Realm Divine Pill. This pill can help a Heaven Ascension Lord's cultivation, and it has some effect on a mid-stage Heaven Ascension Lord. When Wu Xingyuan put down the blazing phoenix leaf, a beautiful woman in a white gauze dress walked up from below. She held a crystal-clear jade bottle in her hand. This woman attracted Zhuowen's attention because her appearance was exactly the same as a human's, but there were 9 white fox tails slowly swaying behind her spine. Zhuowen knew that this woman must be from the 9-tailed fox clan, one of the top 10 clans. Speaking of which, this was not his first time coming into contact with the 9-tailed fox clan. Mei Ying and Mei Su, the mother and daughter he had met in the Lutian region, were also from the 9-tailed fox clan. Their auras were similar to this woman's. Of course, this woman's appearance was even more beautiful than Mei Su and Mei Ying's. With Zhuowen's insight, he could see that this woman's cultivation was similar to Mei Ying's before she had advanced. They were both at the early stage Heaven Ascension Lord. It's the genius of the 9-tailed fox clan, Wu Qiutong. The surrounding discussions also let Zhuowen know that this 9-tailed fox clan member's real name was Wu Qiutong. Wu Qiutong came to the high platform and looked at Wu Xingyuan with her beautiful eyes. Zhuowen saw the look in Wu Qiutong's eyes and knew that she was in love with Wu Xingyuan. Wu Xingyuan stood still and shook his head. Taoist Wu, the Heaven Ascension Ancient Spiritual True Elixir, is useless to me. Wu Qiutong's delicate body trembled, and she could only retreat dejectedly. After Wu Qiutong retreated, many other foreign tribes proposed to trade the blazing phoenix leaf with Wu Xingyuan. Unfortunately, Wu Xingyuan was not satisfied. Among these foreign tribes, Feng Bumming, whom Zhuowen knew, also took out something similar. However, Wu Xingyuan did not take a fancy to it. The commotion below the high platform gradually calmed down. At this moment, no other foreign tribes went up to the high platform to talk about trading with Wu Xingyuan. This was because most of the foreign tribes below who were qualified to trade with Wu Xingyuan were rejected by him. Those who were not qualified stood far away and watched everything silently. Wu Xingyuan saw the silence below and shook his head, revealing a disappointed look. Just as he was about to take care of the blazing phoenix leaf and cancel the trade, a foreign tribe youth with a scar on his face walked up. Wu Xingyuan frowned slightly as he realized that the foreign tribe youth's aura was not strong. He actually came up to trade with Wu Xingyuan. Wu Xingyuan was the #1 genius of the sorcerer tribe and had a noble status. If his cultivation was not at the level of the Heaven Ascension Master, he would not have bothered to speak. The divine elixir inside is enough to trade for your blazing phoenix leaf. Just as Wu Xingyuan was about to chase him away, the foreign tribe youth quickly took out a jade bottle and threw it to Wu Xingyuan. Wu Xingyuan subconsciously caught the jade bottle. After hesitating for a moment, he opened the jade bottle. The moment the jade bottle was opened, a terrifying medicinal power swept out like a storm. Wu Xingyuan was so frightened that he quickly closed the bottle and formed a few seals to seal the jade bottle. However, Wu Xingyuan's eyes were filled with surprise. He looked at Zhuowen and said, "Which tribe are you from? You actually have such a divine elixir with you." "I'm just a nobody, not worth mentioning. Brother Xingyuan, if you are satisfied, then we have a deal," Zhuowen said lightly. Wu Xingyuan's eyes flickered, and he nodded. He simply handed the blazing phoenix leaf to Zhuowen and left the place in a hurry. Everyone saw Wu Xingyuan and the powerful medicinal power that overflowed from the jade bottle. They knew very well that the jade bottle that the foreign tribe youth took out might contain a Heaven Ascension divine elixir that was of a higher level than Wu Qiutong's Heaven Ascension ancient spiritual true pellet from the nine-tailed fox tribe. After Zhuowen took the blazing phoenix leaf, he quickly kept it in the great world. He could not hide the excitement in his heart. He knew very well that after getting the blazing phoenix leaf, he only needed one more Heaven Ascension divine elixir to refine the 6 Desires Spirit Condensing Saint Elixir. Chapter 33:23. Broken Jade slip after Zhuowen walked down the high platform. He was stopped by a figure. Zhuowen raised his head to look and discovered that the one who had stopped him was actually the skinny corpse. At this moment, Shifu's eyes were as ferocious as a ghost. He stared coldly at Zhuowen and said, "Fellow Taoist, I'm Shifu from the Corpse Ghost Clan. I want to trade the exquisite phoenix leaf with you. Take it out." Shifu obviously did not take Zhuowen seriously. In his opinion, the scarred young man in front of him had a weak aura, and he could tell at a glance that he was from a small clan. He was a genius from the powerful Corpse Ghost Clan, so it would be his honor to trade with this young man. He did not doubt that this young man would refuse him. After all, he was Shifu from the Corpse Ghost Clan. As long as he proposed a trade, the geniuses from the other 10 major clans would have to give him face. "Fellow Shifu, I'm sorry. The exquisite phoenix leaf is very useful to me, so I don't plan to trade it," Zhuowen said indifferently. Shifu was stunned, and his face immediately darkened. He said in a deep voice, Shifu, am trading with you. It's a great honor for you, and you actually refuse? Are you courting death?" "What? This is the inner city of the Sorcerer Clan, and this trade fair is originally a free trade. Brother Shifu, do you want to force a trade? If you force a trade, I can call the Sorcerer Clan's elders over to uphold justice. We'll see who's on the side of reason then," Zhuowen said in an unfriendly tone. Shifu was from the Corpse Ghost Clan and was a genius from the 10 major clans. He might be a deterrent to other foreign clans. However, Zhuowen was not afraid at all. After all, he had caused trouble for the Phoenix people, and even fought with the Phoenix people's patriarch, the Phoenix Master. How could he be afraid of a mere junior genius from the Corpse Ghost clan? Shifu's face suddenly darkened. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "I'll remember you. When the Sorcerer Song Fair begins, you'd better not meet me. Otherwise, you'll have a taste of what it's like to live a life worse than death." After saying that, Shifu left the square. Shifu knew very well that even if he was a genius from the Corpse Ghost clan, if he took the lead in this square, the Sorcerer clan would not give him face and would immediately punish him. Therefore, he could not do anything if Zhuowen did not want to trade. Zhuowen, many foreign clans from the surrounding clans, and they shook their heads. They all knew that this young man from a small clan had offended Shifu, so there was no suspense about his future outcome. He would definitely be very miserable. Wu Qiutong of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan took a few more glances at Zhuowen and chuckled softly. What an interesting guy. He's clearly from a small clan, but he's so unyielding. Translation, translation, translation. Translation, in translation, when the translation was translation. When Feng Bumming, on the other hand, looked at Zhuowen with some confusion. He did not know why, but when this scarred youth ascended the high platform to trade with Wu Xingyuan, he felt that this youth's back gave him a very familiar feeling. Maybe it's an illusion, Feng Bumming muttered to himself. Zhuowen walked down from the high platform and left the area of the high platform with Crepe Myrtlestar's sovereign. They planned to walk around the other areas of the square. The square was very large. Maybe they could find some good things. However, after the two of them strolled around, they both revealed disappointed expressions. Most of the items for trade in the square were not good enough for them. Suddenly, Zhuowen inadvertently saw a damaged jade slip on an inconspicuous stall. The owner of the stall was a young man from a small clan. He squatted in front of the stall with his head hanging down. It was as if he did not dare to look up at the foreign clans passing by. Many of the foreign clans passing by snorted and laughed at the young man's stall. They did not even look at him and left. Zhuowen was speechless when he noticed the stall of this youth from a small tribe. That was because there was only a broken jade slip on the young man's stall. There was nothing else. Moreover, the jade slip was too ordinary and looked so old. It was no wonder that the other foreign clans passing by snorted and did not even look at it. The reason Zhuowen noticed this jade slip was because when his divine sense accidentally scanned this jade slip, he discovered that in addition to the very simple restriction on the outside, there was also an extremely complicated restriction on the inside. In other words, there were many restrictions on the jade slip. Generally speaking, if there were many restrictions on the jade slip, the only possibility was that the contents of the jade slip were very important. Otherwise, it was impossible to set up so many restrictions. It was also thanks to Zhuowen's terrifying array skills. Otherwise, he would not care too much about the broken jade slip like the other foreign clans. Zhuowen looked around and saw that most of the foreign clans were still not paying attention to the young man's stall. He pretended not to care and slowly walked to the stall. Crepe Myrtlestar looked at Zhuowen with some confusion. He did not know why Zhuowen was going to that cheap stall. Was he going to buy that useless jade slip? Perhaps sensing that someone was standing in front of the stall, the young man slowly raised his head and looked blankly at the young man with the scar on his face. Zhuowen squatted down and picked up the jade slip. He casually played with it and said, "Fellow Taoist, your jade slip is so broken. There shouldn't be anything good in it. Why are you selling this jade slip?" As Zhuowen spoke, he used his spiritual will to check the jade slip. He was pleasantly surprised to find that the second restriction on the jade slip was very complicated. Even his spiritual Wu could not break through it. Obviously, this restriction was definitely not ordinary. The young man sighed softly and said, "Fellow Taoist, this jade slip was passed down by my clan's ancestor. However, my clan has declined. For countless years, no one has been able to break the restriction on the jade slip. We even invited a formation Tao master of the creation realm, but he could not break it. The things in this jade slip are definitely not ordinary. Once it is broken, it will probably be a great fortune. If not for my embarrassment, I would not have taken out such a treasure to sell. If you like it, I can give you a cheaper price. It's only 50 million heavenly Tao origin crystals." When Zhuowen heard the price, he was shocked. This guy was asking for too much. The jade slip's restriction was so strong that even he might not be able to break it. Yet it was being sold for 50 million heavenly Tao origin crystals. This was the price of an ordinary ascending heaven treasure. It was no wonder that the foreign tribes that came and went were not interested in this jade slip at all. It turned out that this stall owner was asking for too much. The young man also saw Zhuowen's hesitation and hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoist, if you really like this jade slip, I can give you a cheaper price. After all, we hit it off at first sight. How about this? 10 million heavenly Tao origin crystals." However, Zhuowen shook his head and said, 3 million heavenly Tao origin crystals. I can't go any higher." "All right, deal." As soon as Zhuowen said the price, the young man immediately responded with a joyful smile on his face. Zhuowen's face darkened. He felt that he had been tricked by this young man. The price he had quoted earlier was simply nonsense. It was to give the buyer leeway to quote a higher price. This guy was really cunning. However, Zhuowen did not mind. He felt that this jade slip was not simple. No matter how high the price, he would not let it go. After all, what he lacked the least was heavenly Tao origin crystals. After all, he had looted the entire treasury of the Phoenix clan. He had an insane amount of heavenly Tao origin crystals. Chapter 33:24. Divine Soul Sword Intent. Brother Zhua, why did you spend 300 heavenly law origin crystals to buy such a useless jade slip? On the way back, Crepe Myrtle Star expressed that he did not understand and expressed his doubts. Brother Crepe Myrtle, this jade slip has a very unusual restriction. I feel that a jade slip that can set up such a restriction must have extraordinary contents. Zhuowen said. Hearing this, Crepe Myrtle Star still expressed his confusion, but he did not say anything. After Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star left the square, they went straight back to the bungalow area. However, before returning, Zhuowen sent a message to Jingshan, indicating that he had returned. After returning to his room, Zhuowen set up a series of restrictions around the room. After making sure that the surroundings were safe, he took out the jade slip again. He easily tore apart the restriction on the surface of the jade slip. This layer of restriction was the most trashy. Even someone who did not understand formations could easily break it. After breaking this simple restriction, the deeper layer of restriction was much more profound and powerful. Zhuowen spent a full 2 hours breaking the second layer of restriction. What surprised Zhuowen was that after breaking the second layer of restriction, there was still a third layer of restriction. The third layer of restriction was obscure and profound. Zhuowen spent a full half a day to break the third layer of restriction. After breaking the restriction, Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief. There were no more restrictions in the jade slip. Zhuowen's divine sense easily entered the jade slip, and the contents of the jade slip were also seen by Zhuowen. After reading the contents of the jade slip, Zhuowen was ecstatic. This was because the contents of the jade slip turned out to be a secret method to cultivate the divine soul, and use the divine soul as a medium to derive the divine soul sword intent. Zhuowen Wen knew very well how precious a secret method to cultivate the divine soul and attack with the divine soul was. Even the majority of sovereign transcendence experts might not possess such a secret technique. After all, such a secret technique was simply too rare. Zhuowen's spirit could be said to be strong enough under the nurturing of the Panga banner, but his use of it was still very shallow. Moreover, his divine soul would only erupt with great power when there was an expert trying to take over his body. But now it was different. If he could cultivate this soul sword intent, then he could use his soul as a weapon and directly attack the enemy's soul. Zhuowen was very confident. With his current powerful spirit, if he learned this secret technique, he would be able to instantly kill an early-stage transcendent master. After all, his spirit was much stronger than an ordinary early-stage transcendent master. However, Zhuowen was a little hesitant after reading the cultivation method of the soul sword essence. This was because the cultivation process of this secret technique was very cruel. According to the introduction of this secret technique, in order to cultivate the soul sword essence, one would need to directly cut off a part of the divine soul, then condense this divine soul into the sword essence and store it in the divine soul. If the divine soul was compared to a watermelon, then the soul sword essence was formed by cutting off a part of the watermelon and then condensing it. The divine soul was the most important part of a cultivator. If the divine soul was destroyed, it would mean the death of the cultivator. Cutting off a part of the divine soul, even if it was just a small part, would cause fatal damage to the divine soul. If one was not careful, it was very likely that one would become an idiot directly. Zhuowen was a little speechless. What was the founder of the soul sword essence secret technique thinking? Either the founder was a lunatic, or the founder's divine soul was so strong that he could withstand the pain of his divine soul being cut off. Zhuowen began to hesitate and was a little unwilling. Although he had never cultivated this soul sword intent, he knew very well that if he succeeded in cultivating this soul sword intent, it would definitely be one of his killing moves. After all, the attack of the divine soul was invisible and formless. Once it was launched, it would definitely catch people off guard. Let's give it a try. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He still decided to cultivate it first. If it was really not suitable, he would decisively give up this secret technique. There was still 1 day left before the Sorcerer Song competition. In this day, Zhuowen could try to condense a soul sword essence. Doing what he thought was Zhuowen's character, he put aside all his worries and began to study the soul sword essence secret technique in the jade slip. He spent half a day to thoroughly study the cultivation steps of the soul sword intent secret technique, and then began to cultivate. He first began to separate a very small part of the divine soul. The separation process was very painful. Zhuowen's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and he almost cried out in pain. When the small part of his soul was completely separated, Zhuowen let out a light sigh. He held his forehead and endured the intense discomfort of his soul being separated. He began to follow the steps in the secret technique and continuously condensed the small part of his soul that had been separated. The process of condensing was like kneading mud. The small part of the divine soul was constantly changing shape. As time passed, the small part of the divine soul began to show the embryonic form of a sword. This sword shape was really too rough. Even the sword embryo that had just been polished was more exquisite than this sword shape. Zhuowen was not discouraged. He knew that when the soul sword essence was condensed to its most perfect state, it would be as exquisite and sharp as a peerless treasure sword, emitting the blazing light that a treasure sword should have. However, he had just started to cultivate the soul sword essence. It was already very good that he could condense a rough sword shape. After condensing this rough sword shape, Zhuowen placed it in his divine soul and slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was very pale. His headache was like a tide, rushing to his head wave after wave, making him feel like he was about to faint. The price to pay for cultivating this soul sword essence is really high. I feel like I've experienced a life and death situation. Wen gasped for breath, muttering to himself with lingering fear. Stripping the divine soul was too painful for him. This was under the condition that his divine soul was much stronger than ordinary cultivators. If his divine soul wasn't strong enough, he wouldn't have been able to hold on and would have fainted directly. Zhuowen silently checked the soul sword essence that was floating in his divine soul. This soul sword essence was very rough. It couldn't even be considered a sword embryo. Naturally, its power was very limited. However, Zhuowen knew that as long as this soul sword essence was continuously condensed, it could be condensed into a peerless treasure sword. At that time, it would be easy to kill an early-stage Tongtian master. Even a middle-stage Tongtian master might not be able to withstand it. Moreover, Zhuowen also knew that after condensing the soul sword essence, he might have to rest for a period of time before he could separate the second soul sword essence. If he continuously separated his divine soul, even if his divine soul was strong enough, he would be finished. He didn't dare to joke with his life. Zhuowen opened the window and looked at the sky. He found that it was already night. Tomorrow is the day of the Sorcerer's Song Festival. I won't cultivate the soul sword essence tonight. I just need to polish the soul sword essence. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He closed the window again and sat cross-legged on the futon. He began to concentrate on condensing the first soul sword essence that he had separated. As he continued to condense the soul sword essence, Zhuowen was pleasantly surprised to find that his damaged divine soul was actually slowly recovering. His eyes revealed a look of understanding. He finally understood the painstaking efforts of the creator of the soul sword essence mystic technique. Chapter 33:25. Disturbance. As the first rays of the morning sun appeared, someone knocked on the door. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes, revealing a glimmer of light in his eyes. After spending the entire night condensing the soul sword essence, the sword essence in his soul had finally transformed from a simple sword shape into a sword embryo. Zhuowen believed that as long as he was given time to continue tempering, this sword embryo formed from soul sword intent would eventually become a peerless treasure sword. Zhuowen stood up and opened the door. To his surprise, the person who knocked on his door was not Crepe Myrtle Star, but Jingshan. Fellow Daoist Long, you're really cautious. You've actually set up so many restrictive formations outside. Even I almost suffered a loss. Jingshan gave Zhuowen a deep look. After Zhuowen removed the restrictions in the room, he said calmly, I don't like to be disturbed when I'm cultivating, so I'm used to setting up formations and restrictions every time I go into seclusion. Jingshan did not ask further. Instead, she said, Elder Xiao Lei of the Sorcerer Tribe has sent someone over. He wants us to gather at the entrance. Let's go over now. Also, it's best that we split up for the Sorcerer's Song Conference. Zhuowen nodded. Even if Jingshan did not say so, he did not plan to move together with her. Brother Jingshan, you go ahead and gather first. I'll wait for my friend. Zhuowen said. Jingshan did not say much. She simply turned around and left. After Jingshan left, Crepe Myrtle Star also walked out of his room. The two of them looked at each other and walked together. The entrance of the bungalow area was a large open space. At that moment, many members of the foreign tribes had gathered. These members of the foreign tribes were the geniuses from the small tribes that had been selected by the Heaven Gate in the inner city. At that moment, in front of these members of the foreign tribes, a red-skinned young sorcerer tribe member stood arrogantly like a proud peacock, looking down at the geniuses from the small tribes. You bunch of ants from small clans, can't you move a little faster? I really don't know why the Great Sorcerer Tribe gave you trash tribes 1,000 spots. It's a waste of spots. You're just cannon fodder. If you participate in the Sorcerer Song Conference, you'll probably be wiped out in the first stage. This young sorcerer was clearly impatient. Looking at those foreign races who were late, he could not help but fly into a rage. His tone was extremely impolite. The young sorcerer's words immediately caused many of the foreign races to be enraged. However, they could only grit their teeth and swallow their anger. After all, the young sorcerer in front of them was a disciple of the Sorcerer Tribe. Now that they were in his territory, they could not afford to offend him. Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle's Star Sovereign were the last to arrive. When the young sorcerer saw Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle's Star walking over leisurely, the impatience in his eyes grew even stronger. You two came so late. You don't have to attend the Sorcerer Song gathering. Get lost. The young man from the Sorcerer Tribe said coldly as he pointed at Zhuowen and Lord of Purple Star. As soon as he said that, all the foreign races in the group looked at Zhuowen and Star Sovereign Ziwei at the same time. Their eyes were filled with pity. The young sorcerer's rudeness and arrogance had been fully displayed just now. They also knew that the young sorcerer tribe was a man of his words. In other words, these two guys who came late would probably lose their places to attend the Sorcerer Song gathering. When Zhuowen heard that, his face immediately darkened. He looked at the young sorcerer tribe and said coldly, "Elder Shaolei is the one who presides over the Sorcerer Song gathering. Only Elder Shaolei can cancel the quota. Do you think that you have more power than Elder Shaolei and can completely ignore Elder Shaolei's rules?" The young sorcerer tribe was stunned. He did not expect this foreign race to be so daring as to directly contradict him. This made him flustered and exasperated. "Ha! I am only Elder Shaolei's disciple. However, Elder Shaolei has already given me full authority to be in charge of your matters. Your quota is naturally in my hands. If I say that you are not qualified, then you are not qualified. Get out of the inner city now. Or do you want me to hire someone to throw you out?" The young sorcerer tribe said coldly. Zhuowen completely ignored the young sorcerer tribe member. In his opinion, the young sorcerer tribe member did not have enough power to cancel his quota. Seeing that Zhuowen was ignoring him, the young sorcerer tribe member was burning with rage. "Good, you despicable ant from a small race. How dare you ignore me? Today, I will show you how miserable it is to ignore me." The young sorcerer tribe member stretched out his right hand and grabbed at Zhuowen. Terrifying energy exploded. The young sorcerer tribe member completely ignored the large group in front of him. Most of the foreign races hurriedly dodged. Those who could not dodge in time were affected by the energy hand and spat out mouthfuls of blood. Their faces were extremely pale. The young sorcerer tribe member's strength was not bad. He was actually Master Xuanji, who was in the second step of Dao validation. In addition, he had the bloodline of the sorcerer tribe, so his strength was much stronger than most of the foreign races present. Even if there were a small number of foreign races that were not weaker than the young shaman tribe member, they did not dare to go against the young shaman tribe member. After all, this was his territory. How could they dare to provoke this shaman tribe member for Zhuowen? Jingshan frowned slightly. She did not expect such a thing to happen. She knew very well that after Zhuowen's provocation, it was a big problem whether this guy could participate in the Sorcerer's Song gathering. This made Jingshan blame Zhuowen for being too impulsive. Of course, she did not stand up for Zhuowen. After all, she and Zhuowen were only partners who benefited from each other. If she stood up for him in such a matter, she would be crazy. Zhuowen's gaze was gloomy. This young sorcerer tribe member was too full of himself. He attacked him without saying anything. Moreover, he did not show any mercy. He was going to kill him. Zhuowen snorted coldly. His right hand formed into a claw and struck out. The huge energy hand instantly dissipated. At the same time, a powerful force swept over like lightning and hit the young sorcerer tribe member's chest heavily. The young sorcerer tribe member spat out mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale as he flew backward and crashed heavily onto the ground. The young sorcerer tribe member had just uttered the word "you" when he felt something sweet in his throat. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the ground. It was a ghastly sight. Many of the foreign tribe members present were inexplicably shocked. They looked at Zhuowen in shock. When Zhuowen had broken through the heaven gate in the inner city, his performance had been rather normal. Hence, he did not attract much attention. When the young sorcerer tribe member attacked back then, the sorcerer tribe members present subconsciously thought that Zhuowen was done for. However, they did not expect Zhuowen to explode and defeat the disciple of Master Xuanji's sorcerer tribe in one move. He was considered one of the best among them. He was comparable to Jingshan. I've already shown mercy. If you don't know how to appreciate my kindness, I'll kill you on the spot. Also, I've done something to your spiritual soul. If you dare to harm me again, I don't mind destroying your spiritual soul. The young sorcerer tribe member had wanted to get up and scold Zhuowen. However, when he heard Zhuowen's voice in his head, he swallowed his words. You dare to threaten me? I'm a disciple of the sorcerer tribe. How dare you? The young sorcerer tribe member said in a low voice. You can try to see if my courage is big or not. Zhuowen said calmly. He was not afraid of offending this disciple of the sorcerer tribe. He believed that as long as he participated in the Sorcerer's Song Conference, this disciple of the sorcerer tribe would not be able to control him. Chapter 33:26. That guarded ground the young sorcerer tribe member saw that Zhuowen was not to be outdone and fell silent. However, the anger in his heart erupted like a volcano. However, he didn't say anything. He was mainly afraid that Zhuowen might have done something to his divine soul, just as he had told him. This was because he did feel a piercing pain in his spiritual soul. However, the pain was not obvious. In addition to what Zhuowen had said, he was really afraid of the consequences of his spiritual soul being destroyed, like Zhuowen had said. What do you want to do to get rid of the technique in my spiritual soul? The young sorcerer tribe member stared at Zhuowen and asked secretly, Bring us to the Sorcerer's Song Festival. If you do well, I will naturally get rid of the technique in your spiritual soul. Zhuowen replied calmly. The young sorcerer tribe member stood up and glared at Zhuowen. He then said loudly, Everyone, gather. I will bring you to the sorcerer tribe main hall. The Sorcerer's Song Festival is about to begin. Many of the foreign tribe members at the entrance looked at the young sorcerer tribe member in shock. Everyone thought that the young sorcerer tribe member would call for powerful sorcerer tribe members to punish Zhuowen. However, the young sorcerer tribe member acted as if nothing had happened and asked everyone to go to the sorcerer tribe main hall. However, they did not pay much attention to it. Instead, they followed behind the young sorcerer tribe member excitedly. How could they not be excited when they were about to go to the Sorcerer Song Festival? However, Jingshan looked at Zhuowen meaningfully. She had caught the sound waves of the voice transmission between Zhuowen and the young sorcerer tribe member. She knew that Zhuowen must have said something to make the young sorcerer tribe member afraid of Zhuowen and did not dare to go overboard. Zhuowen calmly returned to the group. However, many of the foreign tribe members around him kept their distance from Zhuowen. These foreign tribe members knew that Zhuowen had offended the sorcerer tribe member who was leading the group and would not end well. They did not dare to get too close to Zhuowen. Otherwise, they would be hated by the young sorcerer tribe member. That would not be worth it. Zhuowen and Myrtle Star did not mind the alienation of the surrounding non-humankind beings. They slowly followed behind the troop. Fellow cultivator Long, what did you say to the disciple of the sorcerer tribe? He actually didn't cause any trouble for you? Jingshan's spiritual will appeared in Zhuowen's mind. Maybe he thinks I'm not someone to be trifled with. That's why he didn't bother me. Zhuowen said ambiguously. To him, this Jingshan was only a cooperative relationship based on benefits. She was not a friend that he could trust. There were some things that he would not foolishly say out loud. Jingshan frowned slightly. She knew that Zhuowen was not telling the truth, but she did not care too much about it. As long as Zhuowen could participate in the Sorcerer's Song Conference, she would be fine. After all, she still needed to rely on Zhuowen to enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond and break open the mysterious teleportation formation there. Fellow cultivator Jingshan, I heard that the Sorcerer's Song Conference has a limited number of people to enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. May I know how many people there are? Zhuowen asked. Speaking of which, he had always known that the Sorcerer's Song Conference was a selection to enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. However, he never knew how many people would be selected to enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. You don't know. Jingshan found it unbelievable that Longwen did not know this common knowledge that even the non-humankind beings knew. I've been in seclusion all year round, so I'm relatively uninformed. Fellow cultivator Jingshan, please enlighten me, Zhuowen explained. Jingshan nodded and said, in every Sorcerer's Song Conference, 12 people will be selected to enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. Moreover, these 12 people are basically taken up by the 10 great clans, especially the sorcerer tribe. Out of the 12 people, they usually take up 3 or 4 people. Sometimes they even squeeze out the other geniuses from the 10 great clans. Zhuowen was stunned. The sorcerer tribe was indeed powerful. Before Feng Bumming broke through, he did not have the confidence to get a place in the Sorcerer's Song Conference. However, now the sorcerer tribe could take up 3 or 4 places. It had to be said that the sorcerer tribe was indeed the most powerful among the countless clans in the primitive heavenly realm. Fellow cultivator Jingshan, I don't doubt that you can enter the top 12, but how can you be sure that I can get a place? Zhuowen asked in surprise. Haha, since you've obtained a part of Panga's inheritance, it means that you're definitely not an ordinary person. If you can't even get a place, I feel that you don't deserve to obtain Panga's inheritance. Why don't you just give me Panga's inheritance? I don't want to waste it on you, Jingshan said sarcastically. Zhuowen did not speak. He was thinking about Jingshan's last sentence. This woman was so confident that he could get a place because she was confident in his Panga's inheritance. Moreover, Jingshan was so familiar with Panga's inheritance. This made Zhuowen think of a possibility. This woman might have also obtained a part of Panga's inheritance or something related to Pangu. Otherwise, she would not be so familiar with Panga's inheritance. At this thought, Zhuowen looked at Jingshan with a grave and serious gaze. If this woman had really obtained a part of Panga's inheritance, it would not be a good thing for Zhuowen. Soon, the young sorcerer tribe member led the crowd to the vicinity of the sorcerer tribe's main hall. In front of the sorcerer tribe's main hall, there was a huge open space paved with white jade. On this open space, there were many white jade pillars that were almost as tall as the clouds. On the surface of each pillar, there were strange and lifelike carvings of strange beasts. They looked as if they would pounce out of the pillars and attack you at any time. Around the open space and the sorcerer tribe's main hall, there were 12 even larger and more majestic statues of the sorcerer tribe. These 12 statues of the sorcerer tribe had a majestic aura. They were like indomitable gods that supported the sky, making people feel a sense of reverence. When the young sorcerer tribe member led Zhuowen and the 1,000 geniuses from the smaller tribes into the open space, there were already many geniuses from the larger tribes gathered in front of the open space. These geniuses from the larger tribes also noticed the 1,000 geniuses from the smaller tribes brought by the young sorcerer tribe member. They all looked arrogant. After a casual glance, they chatted and laughed among themselves. They did not care about the 1,000 geniuses from the smaller tribes at all. Obviously, in their eyes, the 1,000 geniuses from the smaller tribes were just there to go through the motions. The ones who were really here to compete for the 12 spots in the sorcerer's magical pond were the geniuses from the larger tribes. This is the guarded ground. Wait here for a moment. The tribe leaders of the top 10 tribes and the geniuses they brought are not here yet. Once they are here, our high priest will come out and announce the official start of the Sorcerer Song Festival, the young sorcerer tribe member said calmly. With that, the young sorcerer tribe member looked coldly at Zhuowen and secretly sent a voice transmission. I've already sent you here. You can undo the technique in my spiritual soul now. Once the Sorcerer Song Festival officially starts, I'll undo it for you. Why are you in such a hurry? Zhuowen replied with a cold smile. The young sorcerer tribe member flew into a rage. However, he still controlled his emotions and sent a voice transmission coldly. Remember what you said. Zhuowen ignored the young sorcerer tribe member. In fact, he had only left a spiritual seal in the young sorcerer tribe member's spiritual soul. The spiritual seal would at most weaken the sorcerer tribe member's spiritual soul for a period of time. Furthermore, it would also cause him to feel a piercing pain. It would not affect his spiritual soul too much. Although Zhuowen's spiritual soul was powerful, it was not powerful enough to destroy someone's spiritual soul from a distance. He had only said that to threaten the young sorcerer tribe member. Chapter 33:27. The 10 great races, the 3 streams of light, were very fast. They arrived at the plaza in the blink of an eye and landed on the empty space in front of the plaza. These 3 streaks of light were 3 mighty flying divine artifacts. After the 3 flying divine weapons stopped in front of the plaza, 3 groups of people walked down from the flying divine weapons. There were only a few people in each of the 3 groups. Zhuowen was very familiar with one of the groups. The leader of this group was the Phoenix Lord, Feng Lilua. In other words, this group represented the Phoenix people. Zhuowen looked coldly at Grand Elder Mu Yu and Third Elder Yen behind Feng Lilua. These 2 fellows had left the Phoenix people with Mu Chenxue. After the 2 of them returned, Mu Chenxue was nowhere to be found. If there was a chance, Zhuowen would definitely capture these 2 and interrogate them about Mu Chenxue's whereabouts. Of course, the time was not ripe yet. If he rashly went up now, he would be courting death. All of this would have to wait until he obtained the ancestral, which grew worm, and his cultivation had increased greatly. Other than the Phoenix people, he actually knew people from the other 2 groups. One of the groups was the Moon Wolf Clan's group that he and Crepe Myrtle Star had just arrived at the Witch God City. He still remembered the old man leading the Moon Wolf Clan. It was the Moon Wolf Clan's patriarch, Itaiha. The young man and woman standing next to Itaiha should be the Moon Wolf Clan's top prodigies. They were called Tu Qian and Qian Ping. Qian Ping, in particular, had mocked Zhuowen at the Witch God City's gate and called him a country bumpkin. Zhuowen had a deep impression of this woman. In the other group, there was a young foreign race that he was familiar with. This foreign race was Sherpu, who had wanted to make a deal with him at the trade fair. In other words, this group should be the Ghoul Clan's group. The Ghoul Clan's patriarch was similar to Sherpu. He was as thin as a match and had a lifeless appearance. However, he looked much older than Sherpu, like a dying old man. Brother Darkmarsh, Brother Tai, long time no see. As soon as Fong Lilua got off the flying divine tool, she cupped her hands and greeted the leaders of the other two teams with great enthusiasm. Taiha, the patriarch of the Moonwolf clan, smiled and responded to Fong Lilua politely. On the other hand, the chief of the Corpse Ghoul clan, Corpse Marsh, seemed to have not heard Fong Lilua's voice. Instead, he asked meaningfully, "Brother Lilua, I heard that the base of the Phoenix people has been destroyed. You still have the mood to come to the shaman song gathering? Your heart is really strong." As soon as he said that, Taiha, who had a calm expression, suddenly looked stunned. He didn't expect that the Phoenix people's nest would be destroyed. He didn't receive any news at all. "Haha, Brother Dark Marsh, you might have heard fake news. The Phoenix people are fine. Who dares to attack the base of the Phoenix people? Unless they are tired of living." Fong Lilua laughed. However, Fong Lilua's smile was slightly forced. Even Fong Bumming, the Grand Elder, and the Third Elder, who were following behind her, looked unnatural. Taiha saw some clues. He knew that Corpse Marsh's words were not without reason. It might be true. Otherwise, the expressions of Fong Lilua and the others wouldn't have changed like that. At the same time, Taiha was very curious. Who was it that dared to break into the Phoenix clan's nest and destroy them? This made him very interested in the culprit. Corpse Marsh sneered. Seeing that Fong Lilua didn't admit it, he didn't waste his breath on this matter. Instead, he stood aside and didn't say a word. On the other hand, Fong Lilua and Taiha were whispering to each other and chatting quite harmoniously. After a while, another 4 streams of light flew over from afar. Naturally, they were 4 more flying divine tools. 4 teams walked down from the 4 flying divine tools. Zhuowen basically recognized the races of the 4 teams because he had seen the 4 races in the star battlefield before. Therefore, he was very familiar with the auras of the 4 races. The 4 races were the space-time beast race, the merfolk race, the dragon race, and the black tiger race. Speaking of which, the race that Zhuowen had killed the most in the star battlefield was the merfolk race. The merfolk race's leader Su Long and Elder MDA, as well as the younger generation's geniuses Sauron, Thorpe, and Moses, were all killed by him. It could be said that the enmity between Zhuowen and the merfolk race was much greater than the enmity between the other races. It could be said that it was an irreconcilable blood feud. However, the merfolk race would never have thought that the human youth who had killed so many of their people was now in the shaman race's shaman god city, and was looking at them from below. The patriarchs of the 7 races who came were all familiar with each other. They had interacted with each other many times in the past. Therefore, as soon as they arrived at the square, they basically approached the patriarchs they were familiar with and began to chat enthusiastically. The juniors of these large clans were also familiar with each other as they gathered together and chatted in low voices. Shifu followed the corpse race. After arriving at the square, he did not take the initiative to chat with the other juniors. Some of the juniors were also quite fearful of the corpse pups and deliberately avoided them. Shifu did not care. His gaze was basically sweeping back and forth at the back of the square as if he was looking for something. Zhuowen, who was standing at the back, saw Shifu's actions and knew that this fellow was definitely looking for him. Previously at the trade fair, he had brushed away Shifu's face and had already made Shifu bear a grudge. After the Shaman Song conference began, the first person Shifu looked for would be him. Zhuowen did not deliberately avoid him. Instead, he looked straight at Shifu and quickly attracted Shifu's attention. Shifu looked coldly at Zhuowen and revealed a sinister smile. He said in a low voice, "You have guts. Not only are you not afraid of me, but you also dare to face me. I like prey like you the most. After the Shaman Song conference begins, I hope you can let me play with you for a while. Don't die so easily." Although Zhuo Wen couldn't hear what Shifu was whispering, he could roughly understand the content of what Shifu was saying by reading his lips. He sneered in his heart and did not take Shifu's threat to heart. Although Shifu was very strong, it was nothing to the current Zhuo Wen. If he used his full strength, Shifu would simply be abused by him. If Shifu really encountered him at the Shaman Song conference, it could only mean that Shifu was unlucky. Time gradually passed. About a quarter of an hour later, 2 more streams of light flew over and landed in front of the square. The 2 races that came this time were the 9-tailed Fox clan and the giant turtle clan of the 10 great races. Almost every member of the 9-tailed Fox clan's group was a young and beautiful fox woman. They were a beautiful sight to behold in the plaza. Among them, Wu Qiutong was the most dazzling existence in this team. After all, Wu Qiutong was the most dazzling genius of the 9-tailed Fox clan, and the most beautiful woman in the clan. On the other hand, the giant turtle clan's members were all burly men wearing huge turtle shells. However, these burly men's skin was as rough and shriveled as the bark of a withered tree. The giant turtle clan was not good at attacking, but their defensive abilities were definitely far superior to most foreign races. They were natural defensive experts. At that moment, 9 of the 10 great races had already arrived. Only the last race was left, which was the shaman race. Chapter 33:28. The grand priest of the sorcerer tribe. The crowd did not have to wait for long. When the 9 tribes gathered at the front of the square, the door of the sorcerer tribe hall slowly opened. A group of people walked out of the sorcerer tribe hall slowly. Everyone looked at the group of people walking out of the sorcerer tribe hall. They were immediately attracted by the graceful figure at the front. She was a female sorcerer. Her skin was as white as snow and looked so delicate that it could be broken by the wind. She was dressed in a colorful robe and held a golden scepter in her hand. The moment they saw the female sorcerer tribe member, all the people in the square stopped talking and looked at the female sorcerer tribe member in awe. She must be the grand priest of the sorcerer tribe. Zhuo Wen asked Jingshan, who was not far away. Yes, she is the grand priest of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Wuxian. She is also the creator of the highest level of array formation and alchemy in the untainted sky domain. Even the holy master of the sorcerer tribe has to give her face. Jingshan said. Hearing this, Zhuo Wen nodded. He had long heard of the sorcerer tribe's high priest Wu Wuxian. In addition, there was an even more mysterious and powerful holy master in the sorcerer tribe. The holy master rarely appeared in public. Wu Wuxian was in charge of all the matters of the sorcerer tribe. Zhuo Wen had thought that the holy master of the sorcerer tribe would appear at the start of the Sorcerer's Song Festival. He did not expect Wu Wuxian to host the festival. This disappointed Zhuo Wen and the other people who had been expecting the holy master of the sorcerer tribe. Wu Hongmiao followed behind Wu Wuxian. His eyes were full of confidence and excitement. Zhuo Wen could tell at a glance that Wu Hongmiao must have used the divine elixir. He had traded with Zhuo Wen to stabilize his mid-terminal master status. There were 2 young disciples of the sorcerer tribe who were walking side by side with Wu Hongmiao. What surprised Zhuo Wen even more was that although the auras of the 2 sorcerer tribe disciples were weaker than those of the sorcerer tribe disciples, they were not much weaker. They were also at the initial stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension. These 2 people are also geniuses of the sorcerer tribe. They are Wu Xiran and Wu Wenbin. These 2 people's cultivations are also at the early stage of Master Tong Tian, but because Wu Hongmiao's wizard body has reached 8 stars, he is far more powerful than Wu Xiran and Wu Wenbin. Although there is not much difference between the 3 of them, Wu Hongmiao's strength is stronger than Wu Xiran and Wu Wenbin's. However, now that the great shaman temple has successfully advanced, the gap between him and Wu Xiran and Wu Wenbin has become even greater. Oh, right. In the past, Wu Hong Temple, Wu Xiran, and Wu Wenbin were called the three heroes of the sorcerer tribe. Back then, they caused a sensation in the primitive heavenly realm. Perhaps Jingshan noticed the astonishment in Zhuowen's eyes, but she quickly explained to Zhuowen about the two witch tribe disciples in the witch flood temple. Upon hearing this, Zhuowen nodded his head. He was even more fearful of the sorcerer tribe now. The sorcerer tribe was indeed powerful. Among the young disciples of the sorcerer tribe, they were able to nurture three geniuses at the level of Master Tong Tian. Didn't that mean that the sorcerer tribe had even more experts at the Master of Heaven level than the Phoenix people? When he thought of this, Zhuowen's gaze became extremely solemn. If the sorcerer tribe was truly far more powerful than the Phoenix people, he doubted that even if his Pangu's sacred body broke through to the 8-star level in the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond, would he be able to escape from the encirclement of the experts of the sorcerer tribe? He was not so sure about his answer. At this moment, in front of the square, the tribe leaders of the 9 great tribes all went up to greet Wu Wuxian. Their gazes were filled with fear and respect. High Priest, I remember that the previous Sorcerer Song Conference was hosted by the Sorcerer Tribe's Holy Master. Why isn't the Sorcerer Tribe's Holy Master here this time? The Moonwolf Tribe's Patriarch, Itaiha, voiced his doubts. The tribe leaders of the other tribes had the same doubts. Although the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe did not usually manage the affairs of the tribe and was a typical hands-off boss. However, for an important event like the Sorcerer Song Gathering, the Holy Master would usually make an appearance to show his presence. However, in this Sorcerer Song Gathering, the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe did not make an appearance, which naturally made the other tribe leaders very puzzled. This was especially so for Feng Liluo and the other tribe leaders who had gone to the Holy Master of the Sorcerer Tribe for a drink. They felt that something was amiss. Wu Wuxian's eyes flickered and revealed a trace of unnaturalness. However, he quickly concealed it. The main thing is that a very important guest came to the Sorcerer Tribe's main hall today. The Holy Master had to personally entertain him, so he did not have time to preside over the Sorcerer's Song Gathering. Wu Wuxian said calmly, "A very important guest. In the entire Eldritch Heavenly Realm, there is no guest who can make the Holy Master so cautious. Even if there is, it must be an old monster who has not appeared in the world for a long time. This kind of person rarely appears in the world. Why would he look for the Holy Master at this juncture?" Feng Liluo asked in surprise. "This guest is not ordinary. Let's not make wild guesses. Now let's get down to business and preside over the Sorcerer's Song Gathering." Wu Wuxian said solemnly. When the tribe leaders saw Wu Wuxian's fearful expression, they were all shocked. In the Eldritch Heavenly Realm, there were very few people who could make Wu Wuxian fearful. It was obvious that the guest that Wu Wuxian was talking about was not a simple person. Wu Wuxian walked to the front of the square and looked around at the foreign tribe members. He said loudly, "I am Wu Wuxian, the Grand Priest of the Sorcerer Tribe. Welcome to the Sorcerer's Song Gathering organized by the Sorcerer Tribe. The rules of this Sorcerer's Song Gathering are the same as the previous years. There are 3 stages, but the situation is completely different. As all of you know, there are only 12 people who can enter the ancestral sorcerer's magical pond. The 3 stages are actually very simple. In the first stage, 500 contestants will be selected. In the second stage, the top 100 contestants will be selected. In the third stage, the top 100 contestants will be selected. Now, I will announce the selection method for the first stage." When Wu Wuxian said this, he deliberately paused. Many of the foreign tribe members in the square held their breaths, waiting for Wu Wuxian to continue. All of you should have seen the stone pillars standing in the middle of the square, right? In the square, there are a total of 500 stone pillars. In each stone pillar, there is a small world. You can choose the stone pillar that you want to enter. Then you can fight in the small world inside the stone pillar. In the end, the first person who can walk out of the small world inside the stone pillar will obtain a spot in the top 500. Chapter 33:29. Inside the stone pillar world. I'm sure all of you know the rules of the first stage. From now on, you can choose the stone pillar you want to enter. The way to enter is very simple. All you have to do is place your entry token on the surface of the stone pillar, and your aura will be sensed by the stone pillar. At that time, you will enter the small world of the stone pillar. Wu Wuxian said calmly. As soon as Wu Wuxian said this, a commotion broke out among the outsiders in the square. They all looked at the stone pillars around them, obviously choosing which small world to enter. Now let's begin. You only have 15 minutes. If you still haven't made your choice after 15 minutes, you will be considered to have forfeited. Wu Wuxian added. After hearing this, the foreign races who were still sizing up the stone pillars could no longer remain calm and made their choices. One after another, the foreign races entered the stone pillars they had chosen. Before entering the stone pillars, some of the foreign races couldn't help but look at the geniuses of the 10 great races at the front of the square. They wanted to see which stone pillars the geniuses of the 10 great races had chosen. Then, they could avoid choosing the corresponding stone pillars to avoid encountering the geniuses of the 10 great races. After all, the strength of the geniuses of the 10 great races was widely acknowledged. Even if some of them were geniuses of the 10 great races, they would still be weaker than the geniuses of the 10 great races. In any case, in the first stage, they would try their best to avoid encountering the geniuses of the 10 great races. However, to their disappointment, the geniuses of the 10 great races still stood at the front of the square, unmoving. Obviously, the geniuses of the 10 great races were planning to leave their stone pillars for last. Zhuo watched as more and more aliens entered the stone pillars. He greeted Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign and walked in the opposite direction of Crepe Myrtle Star. Naturally, he couldn't choose the same stone pillar as the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign. After all, there could only be one winner in each stone pillar. If he and the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign chose the same stone pillar, wouldn't one of them be eliminated? At the same time, Zhuo didn't want to face the geniuses of the 10 great races so early. Therefore, he chose a stone pillar in a very remote location. In front of the square, among the Corpse Ghost Clan's troops, Shifu stared at the stone pillar that Zhuo had entered with a mocking smile on his face. Shifu, do you know that young man from a small clan? Corpse Marsh had long noticed that Shifu's gaze had been fixed on Zhuo. He couldn't help but ask, curiously, I've met him once. He's a rather stubborn ant. The day before yesterday at the trade fair, this ant refused my deal and even threatened me. Shifu said sinisterly, How bold of you! You even dare to provoke our Corpse Ghoul clan. However, he is destined to be an ant. There is no need for you to make a move. Corpse you, go into that stone pillar and properly entertain that ant that provoked Corpse Pup. Corpse Marsh said without much care. A young man who was also as thin as a match walked out from the Corpse Ghoul clan's team. This young man was slightly shorter than the Corpse Pups. His face was ferocious and terrifying, and the stench of corpses from his body was very strong. Shiryu's aura was also very powerful, but compared to Shifu, it was much weaker. His cultivation base was only half a step away from heaven ascension. Even so, Shiryu's reputation was extremely great. Even though Shiryu's cultivation base wasn't high and was only half a step away from heaven ascension, He was a genius amongst the younger generation of the Corpse Ghoul clan that was only inferior to Shifu. Moreover, his methods of attack were extremely strange. Supposedly, Shiryu had forcefully resisted an initial stage Heaven Ascension Lord with his cultivation base all those years ago, and he'd even injured that initial stage Heaven Ascension Lord. Even though Shiryu had paid an extremely great price at that time, this battle had shaken the entire primitive heaven domain. Many clans had found out that besides Shifu, the Corpse Ghoul clan had such a formidable member of the younger generation, Shiryu, because of this battle. Shiryu, don't let that ant die too easily. Your attainments in torturing others are much greater than mine. Shifu spoke indifferently. Shiryu laughed strangely and said, Patriarch, senior brother Shifu, don't worry. Shiryu won't disappoint you. I'll definitely utilize everything I've learned in my lifetime and make that an experience of fate worse than death. After he finished speaking, Shiryu directly flashed towards Zhuowen's stone pillar and quickly entered it. The number of foreign clans in the square quickly thinned out. Most of them had already entered the stone pillars that they'd chosen. At this moment, the geniuses of the top 10 clans who hadn't made any moves before also moved. They all very tacitly chose their own stone pillars. After all, the Sorcerer's Song gathering had just begun, and they didn't want to meet each other so soon. After all, anyone who went up against each other would have the risk of being eliminated. The moment Zhuowen opened his eyes, he gathered all the energy in his body and circulated it around him. His divine consciousness also surged out like a tide to guard against any sudden danger. At this moment, Zhuowen finally had a clear view of his surroundings. He saw that in this world, the ground was like black iron and it had a metallic luster. Meanwhile, the sky was filled with dense black iron chains that crisscrossed one after another. These black iron chains were like the largest chains in the world, and they locked this world up. Zhuowen had a feeling that being in this world was like being imprisoned in an extremely huge prison. The place where he was standing was a mountain peak, and he was standing on the peak. Suddenly, the entry token on his waist began to flash, and the frequency of the flashes became faster and faster. When the frequency of the flashes reached its peak, several ear-piercing sounds could be heard from behind the mountain peak, and they all blasted towards Zhuowen's back. They were 3 foreign clans. Judging from their auras, they should be from the same clan. Consider yourself unlucky to have encountered the 3 of us. Just die. One of the foreign clans laughed complacently. Unfortunately, just as he finished speaking, Zhuowen attacked. Zhuowen quickly threw out 3 punches, and each punch was like a mountain falling from the sky, filled with a terrifying feeling of heaviness. Before the smiles on the 3 foreign clans' faces faded, they were hit by the 3 punches. They didn't even have time to scream before they were blasted into a bloody mist. After killing the 3 foreign clans, in an instant, Zhuowen jumped down the mountain peak and disappeared from the mountain range like a bolt of black lightning. The mountain peak was too high, and he stood on top of it. Therefore, he had to find a place to clear up the situation first. As for the 3 foreign clans who were killed by Zhuowen in an instant, they were teleported out of the stone pillar the moment they were killed. They looked at the stone pillar in front of them in a daze. They knew that they had been eliminated. However, they couldn't accept that they had just entered not long ago, and they hadn't even seen the world inside the stone pillar clearly, and they were already eliminated. This was too unfair. Chapter 33:30. Wu Wuxian's concern Zhua when stopped in the middle of a metal forest. The trees in this forest seemed to be made of metal, emitting a rather bright luster. Zhuowen stopped in a huge tree trunk, completely concealing his aura. On his way to this metal forest, he encountered several attacks from foreign races. Every time the outsiders launched a surprise attack, the medallion hanging from his waist would flash with blinding light. Zhuowen knew that when two parties with entry tokens approached a certain distance, they would be sensed. This was a warning of danger, and at the same time, a sign that he would be exposed. Zhuowen did not know how many foreign races there were in this stone pillar world, but he knew that it was definitely not more than 3 digits. Moreover, along the way, he also discovered that the area of the stone pillar world was not large. If he wanted to search this world, he should be able to search the entire world in 3 days. Because Zhuowen had entered the stone pillar world earlier, he did not know whether the geniuses of the 10 great races had chosen the same stone pillar as him. Even if the geniuses of the other 10 great races did not choose this stone pillar, the Shifu of the corpse ghost race had some grudges with him, and it was very likely that he would choose this stone pillar. However, Zhuowen was not afraid. Entering this world was a rare opportunity for him to breathe. He didn't want to waste his time hunting other foreign races. He planned to use this time to completely condense his soul sword intent, because he knew that instead of wasting time looking for other foreign races, it was better to wait for the last foreign race to come to him after the battle. This would save him a lot of trouble. This metal forest was considered the edge of this world, and it was also an extremely remote place. He knew that it was very difficult for ordinary foreign races to break into this place. Unless they searched every corner of this world, they would not notice this metal forest. In the metal forest, Zhuowen chose the thickest metal tree, made a large hole in the trunk, and set up a simple cave dwelling. Then he set up a powerful shielding formation outside the cave abode, and set up a surveillance formation several miles around the cave abode. Once someone entered within a radius of a few miles, the monitoring array formation would be activated. At that time, Zhuowen would know in advance. After doing all this, Zhuowen entered the cave with peace of mind and began to concentrate on condensing the divine soul sword intent. This divine soul sword intent was one of his major killing moves. He had to condense as many of them as possible. This would be of great benefit to him when he competed for a spot later on. On the metal wasteland hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the metal jungle, Shifu was walking slowly. His entire body was shrouded in a dense gray corpse aura. Both of Corpse Yu's hands were grabbing onto an alien race member and dragging them on the ground. However, the two outsiders weren't dead. Instead, they were in a half-dead state. Their heads were bleeding, and when they were dragged on the ground by the corpse youths, they left long bloody marks on the ground as they screamed in agony. "Corpse you, kill us quickly. Hurry up and kill us. It's too painful." One of the outsiders screamed. His eyes were bloodshot, and he wanted nothing more than to die. "Kill you? That's too easy for you. If you really die after I kill you, I don't mind killing you. However, if you don't really die, then it's meaningless. I'd rather let you enjoy a period of pain," Shifu said with a hideous smile. "Shifu, you'll die a horrible death. You Corpse Ghoul clan are all perverts, a bunch of people who are neither human nor ghost." The alien race member on Shifu's right said with a venomous gaze. Shifu stopped and swung his right hand. The alien race member on his right was thrown to the ground. The alien race member was in so much pain that he groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked extremely miserable. "You should be from the Mole clan. How dare you insult our Corpse Ghoul clan? Do you know the price you have to pay for insulting the Corpse Ghoul clan?" Shifu said in a low voice. The alien race member didn't speak anymore. His entire body was invaded by the corpse aura. He was in so much pain that even speaking took a lot of effort. "Haha, I've decided to grant you death. However, the Mole clan doesn't need to exist anymore. After this Sorcerer Song Conference, your Mole clan will be wiped out. The reason for your clan's extermination is you, a traitor. After Sure Yu finished speaking, he clenched his right hand. The alien race member screamed in agony as his body started to fester. No, Lord Shiryu, I was wrong. Please don't attack my clan. It's all my fault. If you want to kill me, then kill me. After this, I'll come to you and beg for forgiveness. The alien race member begged Shiryu as he screamed in agony. Unfortunately, Corpse Yu merely sneered as he watched this alien being completely fester into dregs. The alien race member on his left was terrified. He didn't dare to say a word. Trouble came from the mouth. It was a small matter if he was killed, but if he was implicated in the clan behind him, then he would be a sinner. I don't want to play anymore. You can go to hell too. Shiryu's gaze was cold. He clenched his right hand, and the alien race member on his left also festered and died. This world isn't big. I didn't see long when on my way here. It seems like he hid the moment he came in. However, I'm not in a hurry. I'll search slowly. After I find Long One, I'll make him suffer more than death. Ha ha. Shiryu laughed coldly. He had heard about Zhuowen's fake name from Shifu. Back then, Zhuowen had contradicted Shifu. Naturally, Shifu had investigated Zhuowen and found out about Zhuowen's fake name. Only half a day had passed. Beside the most conspicuous stone pillar in the square, alien race members were constantly being sent out. When the last alien race member was sent out, the stone pillar shattered. A slender figure walked out slowly from the shattered stone pillar, like a king returning. The grand priest Wu Wuxian, who was standing at the front of the square, looked satisfied when he saw the figure. The figure was the most powerful genius of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Xingyuan. At that moment, Wu Xingyuan's gaze was emotionless. He walked out slowly like a god who had returned victorious from hell. No wonder he's the most powerful genius of the sorcerer tribe. This Wu Xingyuan is terrifyingly powerful. In just half a day, he eliminated everyone and obtained a spot in the top 500. In front of the square, the leaders of the other 9 tribes looked at Wu Xingyuan in shock. They had thought that the contestants who entered the competition would take at least a day. They had not expected Wu Xingyuan to come out in half a day. This speed was too fast. Congratulations, Grand Priest. Wu Xingyuan's future is limitless. I'm afraid he can lead the sorcerer tribe to the peak of prosperity. The surrounding leaders also congratulated the Grand Priest, Wu Wuxian. Their eyes were filled with envy. Wu Wuxian was also very satisfied. It was rare for the sorcerer tribe to produce a genius like Wu Xingyuan. In his opinion, Wu Wuxian was the most promising genius to surpass the sorcerer tribe's holy leader. He was the best candidate for the position. However, Wu Wuxian thought of the mysterious guest that the sorcerer tribe's holy leader was receiving. He could not help but frown. The mysterious guest was very powerful. It was said that even the sorcerer tribe's holy leader was defeated by him with one slap. The sorcerer tribe's holy leader was subdued. Before Wu Wuxian walked out of the sorcerer tribe's main hall, the sorcerer tribe's holy leader had sent a message to him. The mysterious guest was most likely a terrifying expert who was at least at the 4th decay of Heaven's Blight. The entire sorcerer tribe was no match for this mysterious guest.